Okay, so welcome to the first lesson of iOS 6. This is going to be super exciting. We're going to make a fully functional app. I'll show you that in a second. But I just want to reiterate sort of what we talked about before, and that's sort of to trust the process. We're going to be going over a lot of different code today. We're going to be typing it. If there's too much code, I might share some code just to sort of move things along a little bit. And then we're going to be hooking up user interface elements. So you're going to go through this process. You're going to follow along. As you're typing this, you're going to be building brain neuron connections. This is just how the mind works. As you go through actions, you remember things. If you were just to read a book and not actually try to write code, you're not going to understand what we're doing today. So it's really important that you go through the motions. It's not always going to make sense. We're going to be covering a lot of different things to sort of create the application, but I want to show you how the app's going to work, and then we'll start to build out those pieces. Another thing I want to cover is we have what's called the 20-minute rule, and this is where you need to actively try to solve your own problems. You're going to come across many problems as we're going through the materials, and I would say this applies more outside of class. I'm not going to ask you to wait for 20 minutes while you have a problem while we're going through a guided project. I'd rather know sooner rather than later if you're having a problem in the project. But as you're working on the afternoon projects and the other activities, make sure that you spend at least 20 minutes working on a problem where you're stuck, and then try to fix it yourself. You're going to learn a lot more if you actually try to solve your problems than if you just sort of always ask questions and never dig into the actual problem. Okay. And the other thing I want to cover, and this is something that I do as a developer, is I have a log of what I'm doing. So I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and create a log. Let me share my screen so you can sort of see some of these things I want to talk about real quick. All right, so you should see my screen, and the first thing I want to show off is a daily log, and this is going to be really helpful for you. So an easy thing to use is just the Notes app. You can create a folder. You can call it daily log, or you can call it Lambda. I just called this one daily log, and then within here you can have different notes where you can write down what you do. So if you want, you could have a log for each day, or you could have just one log where you just keep adding on to it. And what's really important, and I think that you're going to learn a lot, is if you start to add sections for what you're learning every day. So add an entry for each day. You can paste code samples. You can organize your ideas. You can ask questions. Probably asking questions is one of the most important things that you can do in a daily log, because you're going to see a lot of things that you don't fully understand. And in going through the motion of asking the question, your brain's going to start thinking about, okay, well, what is this one thing? And then you'll be able to go back to your questions and you can answer them yourself. So you'll start to fill in the gaps as we're going. And then going back to this, you can review all of the stuff that you write down, all the code things, all of the different things that you're going to learn, and just put that into your daily log. I do something like this for development, and maybe I'll show you what I have tomorrow after we get into the Git stuff. My approach, I use another piece of software for tracking my log, but to keep things simple, every one of you should have the Notes app on your Mac computer, and you should be able to go ahead and create a daily log. So what I want you to do right now is just create a new note in Notes and call it the daily log. Now, I like to put the date in this format just because it makes searching for it a little bit easier, because I've got the year first, but you're free to put the date in whatever format that you like. And I just want you to create an entry, and today we're going to be learning about creating a table view and tab bar and map kit app. So you can write something like creating And you can do Command B to bold a tab bar application. Something like this, and then I want you to write down any questions that you have as you're going along, and you can come back to this throughout the afternoon as you're working. All right, so this is a really good practice. The other thing that's really useful is you won't remember everything you do at the end of the week because we're going to be moving so fast. So by keeping track of it in some kind of note, you'll be able to come back and remember what we did. And yeah, Google Spreadsheet's a totally valid way to do this. There's anything that's going to work is going to be a good way to keep track of what you're doing. The main reason why I like to have something like this is if I have a piece of code, let's say I want to copy this chunk of code, I can copy a chunk of code and I can see it here. Now, if you put this into a Google spreadsheet, it's going to be a lot harder to read because of the formatting. So something like this is really useful in an application that supports code and formatting. Okay. The other thing that I want you to do, if you haven't already done, and let me see if I can pull that up. If you have the Zoom app installed, you should be able to click on My Profile. So in the top right corner, I'm assuming that there's a My Profile button. If you do that, you should be able to log into your profile. What I want you to do is I want you to change your profile image. Go ahead and upload an image from your computer and then set your image. That way, when you don't have your camera on, you'll at least have a picture of yourself so that we can see who you are. Otherwise, you just sort of look like this generic person outline. So if you could go ahead and do that. Again, to get to that, that was the Zoom app. And just click on the My Profile button. Or you can log into Zoom and then go to your profile settings to change your profile image. And you can do the same for Slack if you haven't already done that. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to sort of show you what we're going to be building today, and I also want to cover, I guess, Training Kit. So raise your hands if you've been able to log into Training Kit and if you've read the first lesson, which is Navigation Controller and View Controller Containment. And if you don't see the Zoom profile, we can work on setting that up later. It was just something I want to try and get set up. So it's okay that you don't have it quite set up now. We'll get that squared away later on today. Awesome. So Training Kit is going to be sort of your source for information. It's really important that you review this the day before. One of the things that I really like to do is to read documentation and things at night because it gives your mind a chance to process the information. So our minds are really sort of fascinating machines in that, like, we can review things, and then when we go to sleep, the stuff that's in your short-term memory will actually get transferred to long-term storage, and as it does that, it creates more neuron and brain connections. So reviewing this the day before is really helpful because you'll learn some of the terminology, you'll see some of these words, and you'll be like, oh, that's what Paul was talking about, and I sort of get it. And it's okay if you didn't review all of this for today. I know we're just getting started, but moving forward, the night before is really the ideal time to go over this information so that you are familiar with some of the terminology and that you have some of the concepts. Now, I'm not expecting you to understand everything, but this is a starting point. Along with each lesson and Training Kit, you're going to see some videos that are related, and watching these is really helpful. And there's something that you can come back to if you want to see a concise thing from one of the lessons. Below that, you're going to see some descriptions that talk about it, some screenshots sometimes, and some of these that cover this. So this is a good place to start. And every night I'm going to ask you to go here, and your PMs should be pushing you to review the materials for the next day. Okay, so that is training kit. And at the very bottom, we'll get to this later on in the lesson, but there is a project and there's previous recordings. So if there's any previous recordings for one of these lectures, you'll find these down here. I will post them into Slack, and I will also post the lecture from today into the class recordings. You'll also see your project. This is what you'll work on this afternoon, and this is going to build on what we do today. So this is the project. We'll talk about that later, and then your PM will work with you to kickstart that and get you going. Okay. And if you don't have your password for training kit, we can get that squared away later on. That's not going to be what we need to get started with today. What we do need is Xcode. So everyone should have Xcode, and we're going to jump into it. And I will start covering things. Now you should have worked with Xcode a little bit with the pre-course materials. I'm going to try and fill in some blanks and teach you a few things. And as I do these types of things, I will use keyboard shortcuts. I will tell you what keyboard shortcuts I'm using, and I will try to show you shortcuts that can save you time as we're going. Any questions before we get started? Cool. Okay, so this is an iPhone simulator, and I'm running on the iPhone XR. When these pop up, because the new iPhones have different gestures from the top and the sides, it's really hard to move the window around. So if you look, there's this little tag at the very bottom when a simulator is up. We'll see this once we start our application. That's how you can move it around. So today we'll be building an application that allows us to save places, and we'll be able to have a map view as well as what's called a table view that can display a list of entries. Tons of apps on the App Store have table views, and you should have seen this in the pre-course materials. The table view here, when I click on a row, should zoom into the location, and so I'll tap this row and we'll see that this zooms in onto Rochester. So I am in Rochester, New York. It's upstate New York, but I could also tap over here and go over to San Francisco, California. So we'll be setting this up where you'll be able to add new locations with these text fields and then save that location. So we could add something like Salt Lake City, and then the location for that is going to be something like, I think, what was it, 40.7 and then negative 111.8 or so. So if I go ahead and add this, save it as a place, and it should appear, but it didn't appear. So that's something that we'll have to fix. That's not actually working in this demo project I made, so that's my bad. But that will allow us to add a new place. So we're going to learn how to do that so that we can jump around and see your hometown. If you want, you can Google right now. You can Google your city location. So if you do something like Rochester, New York, GPS location in a new window, I want you to add this to your, and that didn't work. Let's try GPS coordinates. And I want you to add this to your note. So you can go ahead and select this. Now, I believe that it's going to be, so if I bring my note up and I want to add this, this would be Rochester. But I believe we will need to make this negative. So that 77 West is going to need to be a negative number. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started, and we will dive right in. So I'm going to ask you to create a new Xcode project. And when you open up Xcode for the first time, you should see this Welcome to Xcode window. So this is the window that you'll see the very first time you open Xcode. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. And I'm also going to set a timer so that we can take a break at 1. Cool. So let's jump into a new project. If you see this dialog, you can click this button that says create a new Xcode project, or you can go to File, New Xcode Project. Now the keyboard shortcut, I use this a lot, is going to be Command-Shift-N. So you can see the keyboard shortcut right here. If you click that or hit the keyboard shortcut, it should start a new Xcode project. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, depending on what you last created, it's going to recommend creating a new project. We're going to go iOS. So in this top tab bar, select iOS, and then you're going to select a single view application. The single view application is the default template that we're going to start with, and this is a great starting place for any kind of app that you create. With any of these templates, you can always, it's not magic. You can always create and modify it to do any of these other things. So don't worry about that right now. But a single view application is going to be the best place to start for almost any project or test project that you do. Now, typically when I create these projects, I put them on my desktop if they're sort of sample projects. Otherwise, sometimes I put them in a development folder that I have as a dev folder. So I'm going to hit next for single view application. And here we're going to give this a name. We're just going to call this places. And for team, if you've already configured your Apple ID, you can put that in here. So you could use your Apple ID. If you haven't done that yet, we can set that up later today, and you can just go ahead and go with none. That should be fine. For the organization name, you can put your name here. I'm just going to do Lambda Inc. for this one. And then the organization identifier, if you have a website, you can use reverse DNS, which is just your website in reverse. So instead of saying lambdaschool.com, you say com.lambdaschool. This is just a way to have a unique identifier for your application. This is really important when you go to publish this app on the App Store. It really doesn't matter at this point. It's only when you want to upload this to the App Store, if you want to use TestFlight to test it out with your friends and family. For now, any of these settings can be changed, so don't worry. We can always configure them. We're going to start with Swift for the beginning portion of this course. At the end, we'll dive into Objective-C, so you'll get exposure to both of these languages. Both languages are really important when you are looking for jobs because there's a lot of code written in both languages at the companies that will be looking to hire you. And there's a lot of solution code that's either in Swift or on Objective-C online when you're looking for solutions to problems. All right, so these checkboxes we'll just leave unchecked. We'll be working with core data, unit tests, and UI tests throughout the course, but we'll not worry about that until we come to those lessons. And as with any of these settings, again, we can always add these after the fact. So this is just a little wizard that helps us get started right away. Okay, so in terms of project management, I want you to get into the practice of creating projects anytime you want to explore something. And so when I'm exploring things with code, I just put things in a projects folder on my desktop. So if you go to your desktop, you can create a new folder and you can just call it projects. Okay, and if you go ahead and do that, you can create it, and then you can go into that folder and you can hit create. Now there's one more checkbox. I have this options button hit. If you don't have this options button, you can see it. This will create a Git repository. This is fine to leave unchecked or checked. We will be working with this tomorrow. So it's fine to leave it checked. I'm going to leave it checked for this one, just to have it, and we'll go into what exactly this is tomorrow. So don't worry about that just yet. So I'm going to hit create, and this should put a new project onto my desktop. And you're going to see some characters. This is related to Git over in this sidebar. So now I want to sort of go over what we're looking at. Okay, so if you want Xcode to fill the screen, and you can do full screen mode. The problem with full screen mode is that you can't see the simulator. So if you hit this button, then we can't see the simulator anymore, and we're sort of in this full screen mode. So I almost never do this when I'm doing app development if I need to see the simulator, because we'll be testing the app on the simulator as opposed to testing it on device for today's lesson. So what I like to do is I press the Option or the Alt key on my keyboard, and I then hit the plus button. You'll see that the green icon becomes a plus button. That will just make this fill the screen, and then I can resize the left portion to show the simulator. So that's sort of how I set up my computer so that I can sort of show both of these things. If there's a lot of stuff going on, sometimes I'll try and take up all this space. Now, if you're managing multiple windows, you might want to have some of the other windows coming through so that you can see Slack or so that you can see the Zoom window as you're trying to follow along. But I really, really, really recommend a second monitor so that you can see what I'm doing and then follow along on your screen. Okay, so this is Xcode, and I'm going to talk through the different panels. Along the top bar, we are going to see a big play button that will start your application. So if you go ahead and hit that play button, we should see something appear, and it might take your computer. It could take anywhere from 5 to 60 seconds or so for the simulator to start. So you should see it spinning, and then it should start your application, and then we will see a white screen. There are some dialogues. If this is your first time running an app on the simulator, you might see about code sign. You just need to type your password for your local machine and accept any of those. And you should get to this screen. Okay, so that will start your app. If you want to stop your app, you can hit the stop button and it will stop the app. That's like quitting the application. So those two buttons are super useful. Next to this, we see the name of the application. It's called Places. The name matches whatever we typed in on that first screen. And then we'll see our choice of simulators. I can scroll up and down in this list, and we can see it's defaulting, I think, to XR now. It used to default to the iPhone 8, but now that we have the iPhone XR, I think Xcode 10.2 defaults to the XR. So that's fine. But if we wanted to test how our app looks on any of these other screens, we could run it on an iPad, we could run it on the iPhone XS Max, or a really small one like the iPhone 5S or the SE, which is going to be the same form factor. Okay, the other thing I want to point out now is over on the right side, we're going to see a couple different buttons. The far right panel is going to allow us to hide and show this inspector panel. And then this button is going to allow us to hide and show the navigator panel. Along the bottom, we're going to see this will allow us to hide and show the debug area, where we'll see messages that might be messages that we write, or we'll see a variable view. Next to that, we have this button that allows us to have the assistant editor, which allows us to see two different files at the same time. So that's like the Venn diagram icon. It's the two circles. So that's sort of going to be helpful for us as we're working with both code and user interface. And then we get the version editor. This is useful when we get into Git, which we'll talk about tomorrow. All right, so for now, if you just want a single code view or view, just click on this leftmost tab. The other thing we're going to see here is the object library button. We'll get to this when we're designing the user interface. So this has moved. This actually didn't used to be here in Xcode 9 and lower. So if you've worked with Xcode before, this is a new button that has been added and some stuff has been moved around. All right, over on the left, what we're going to have is our navigator. And the first one that we see, this top left, we're going to have a set of different tabs here within this left bar. This is the project navigator. This has all of the code files. This has all of the image resources that we have in our project, as well as the user interface files. When you click on this special top level link, this shows you the project settings in the center panel. So in the standard editor, which is the center panel, we see all of the settings for the project. We also have the version control. This shows me stuff that we'll talk about tomorrow. We've got this symbols navigator. We've got the find navigator. This is probably one of the most important things that I would recommend that you use. When you're looking for a certain symbol, you can search for something. So you could type right now view controller, press enter, and this will show you all of the instances where view controller is used within your project. And if there's multiple code files, it will show you them. And if there's user interface files, it will show you them. A shortcut for this that I'll recommend many times is going to be Command-Shift-F, and you can paste things in and it will have the focus. So super, super useful when you're trying to track down bugs or problems. The other thing that we're going to see here, this fifth icon, is the issue navigator. When we have an issue because something's not working, then we will see it here. Now, it's important to keep in mind, and you've probably seen this already, but everything is case sensitive. The spelling matters. If you don't spell it the same, things go wrong. So we're going to see lots of issues. You're going to learn how to correct those issues. And this is where those issues tend to appear. All right, next up, we've got the tests. We'll get into unit tests later on. Don't worry about this now. And then we've got the debug session. We'll see this whenever we're running an application. So if you hit the run button, you'll see additional stuff appear in this panel. And it will tell you how much CPU is being used. You can click on these different tabs and it gives you all these fun statistics for what's going on under the hood with your application. Next up, we have the breakpoints view. We don't have any of these set, so we're not going to see anything just yet, but we will come back to this later on in the course or when we have problems. And then we have the report. This just tells us some information about starting our application. Okay, so let's look over at the right side, and I'm going to switch back to the storyboard file. So if you look in your project navigator, that's the file one on the far left, I want you to click on your storyboard. And in here, you're going to see a view controller. And then, so now what's going to happen is if I click on this object library, what you should see is this little window appears, and it should show you, let me bring that up again. This should show you all the objects that you can add to the screen. In Xcode 10.2, I believe that they remodified this, so now it shows all of like the buttons and labels first. So if you click on one of these things, you can drag it onto the screen. If you click again, you can drag another thing onto the screen. So we'll be playing with this later on today. Once you know what these controls are, you'll have to actually, we need to use a mouse wheel to scroll, or I have my trackpad set up next to me. I can use 2 fingers on the trackpad to scroll up and down. So we'll have a lot of different things in here. There's going to be some view controllers that you'll see as well. And we can also hit this little button here. Once you know what these different icons mean, you can go to the sort of the condensed view, which is easier to sort of see these different things. Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, is there a keyboard shortcut for the library?
Oh yeah. So to bring this up, it's going to be Command-Shift-L, and then it will appear. So I'll go over that when we're designing some stuff. The other thing is this window goes away anytime you drag a UI control off of it. So if you want something to stay, you can hold the Option key as you drag something off, and that will make it so this now has an X bar so that it will stay up. and you can keep on dragging different controls onto the screen. So raise your hand if you're able to pull up the object library either by clicking on it or doing Command-Shift-L and dragging something onto this view controller scene. Crap. Someone else have a question? Awesome. Okay, so that's the object library. Once you're done with it, you can just hit that X button to close it. Another trick is if you hold the Option key and you click on it, that will also make it persist so that you can keep dragging elements onto the screen. And you can also search for different things. So we'll talk about more of that in a bit. So this is our view controller. If you were to test your app right now, you should see that all of these fun little buttons and labels you dragged out should appear, and it should no longer just be a white screen. So we see that stuff appear right here. And again, you can move the simulator with this bottom flag. So that's really handy. Otherwise, it's a little hard to move sometimes. All right.
I keep forgetting, but do you have to press Control and then drag the button on to the view controller?
No, you shouldn't have to. You should just be able to drag it on. So if I select this label, I'm just left clicking and dragging and plopping it right down. Does that work for you, John?
It did when I was taking the pre-course, but for some reason it's
Are you on a Mac right now?
yeah. So if I'm just dragging table view controller.
Okay, table view control, you can't, so depending on which one you select, let's see. If you try to drag it on top, that's not going to work. You have to drag that next to it.
Oh, okay. Well, that
So
would
some of those are, yeah, some of, I didn't make that clear. These bottom ones that are yellow icons, they're special and they don't get dragged on the same way because they're basically a second screen. So if you've ever used an app that's got multiple screens, that's what we're looking at here.
Okay, I was able to drag a button easily, so that was the problem.
Got it. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is our side panel. And anytime we select a UI element, so you can click on a button that you've dragged out or a label that you've dragged out, we're going to see this side panel. You can open up the inspector by clicking that top right button on your computer. And the first tab we're going to see is this this file inspector. This is going to show you information about the file itself. We generally don't have to modify this, so you can usually leave that one alone. After that, we'll see quick help. This will give us some information about the actual thing. If you click the open in developer documentation, that should open up Xcode and it should show you the documentation. This has been buggy in the past, so you might have to retype whatever it was trying to search. It doesn't always seem to appear. So I use another tool called Dash for documentation as well. Next up, we have the identity inspector. This one we're going to be modifying today. So we're going to come back to this. This kind of looks like a license, looks like a driver's license. So in here, we can modify the class. This is how we hook up code to user interface elements by typing the class name, and we'll come back to that later. Next up, we will have the attributes inspector. This is probably one of the most popular things that allows us to modify lots of attributes. So you can go in here and modify the font. So if I wanted to, I could set this to a, let's see, this is a label. We'll do a large title. That's going to make the text get bigger. And let's say I wanted to use a different color. Let's use maybe a blue color. So I'll click on the color button, and then I'll go to custom, and then we can customize it. There are these color pencils that we can use to pick a color. We can go to the color slider. If we switch this to RGB sliders, you can type in hexadecimal values. So if you're used to that from any web development you've done, that's how we can add those colors. Or we can switch over to this color picker and we can play around with color here and change the brightness and sort of select something else. So if I want to go with a bluish color, I can go over to this side, select blue, and then I can close this color picker. So that's how we can modify the label. You can double click on any of these and you can edit them. So I want you to type hi and then put your name. So I'll just write hi Paul, but you can edit yours if you have a label or a button just by double clicking on it and then typing your name. So there's lots of attributes in here that we can customize. We'll be going over any of that as we need to. I don't think we'll be doing too much with this today. I just want to sort of show you where this is. The other thing we have is the size inspector. We'll see this more when we work with auto layout, and we might do a little bit of that today. And then we'll see this is the connections inspector. And this allows us to connect our code to the user interface. So this allows us to do those two things together, and we'll see that later on today. Awesome. Okay, is there anything else? That pretty much covers the gist of what I wanted to do and sort of demonstrate before we actually dive in and start making changes. So if you go ahead and hit the run button, you should see your changes appear and the new string should appear. Now, we're going to run into issues potentially with our strings where they may or may not appear correctly, and that's because we need auto layout, which is something that we'll get into. A quick fix for this one is if I click on Hi Paul and I click on this triangle TIE Fighter button down in the very bottom right corner, so it looks kind of like a TIE Fighter down here in the bottom corner of the storyboard interface. There's a button that says Add Missing Constraints for the selected views. If we click that, that will add some constraints. And if we run this again, it should make it so that you can see your full name if you've done that. And we can see that my name now appears. So auto layout is a tool that allows us to make our user interface work on multiple devices. We're not going to get into the details of it today. We're going to, I think, talk about it on Thursday. But the add constraints from this triangle TIE Fighter button is going to be the easiest way just to get started with something that works. All right. Oh, there's one more thing I want to go over, and that's Xcode preferences. So you're going to go up to Xcode in the menu bar, and then I want you to click on preferences. Alternatively, you can use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command comma. So if you open up preferences, you should see some stuff. Let me just talk about the important things. So on general, we can probably leave all these settings as they are. You'll want to see show live issues, so make sure that is checked. It should be by default. Under accounts, I want you to go ahead later on today, this afternoon, I want you to add your Apple ID if you haven't already done this. So this is my Apple ID, and this allows you to build and deploy your app on a real device so that you can get it onto your iPhone. For behaviors, I want you to make some modifications. I'm not sure if this is set up how I would recommend it, so I'm going to show you the settings that I want you to set up. There's two things I want you to change, and that's for when we're building. So where it says generates new issues under behaviors, I want you to make sure that it says show the issue navigator. So the issue navigator is going to show us the problems. And then I want you to have it navigate to the first issue. So if you just have those two things set up, so when there's a problem, it should show us the problem when we build and try and run our application. And if it fails, I want you to click on the fails, and I want you to make sure that your settings match this as well. Notify using the bezel show the issue navigator. You can also show the current editor, that's fine. And then you can navigate to the first issue. This one's probably the most important because this will show you your problem and make it easier to find. So if you go ahead and set those up, that will help us a lot. And the last two things I want to talk about in here for today is the font and colors. This allows you to change your font. So if you're using dark mode in Mojave, you can have your default color set, or you can override that depending on what you've got set up. I'm just in the light mode, and I prefer this just to keep everything sort of consistent for you if you're using the default settings. So I'm in the light mode. But this allows you to try different themes if you want something a little bit different. You can always import different themes as well. So there's a lot of different colors. When you do this, it will change the way the code looks. So if we've got the code up, you will see that that code editor now is different. Now, you'll notice that my preferences window disappeared. Here's a shortcut that's really, really helpful. It's Command tilde. So Command tilde will cycle through all of the Xcode windows. So if you press that, you should be able to get your system preferences to appear again if it went into the background. All right, so I'm just going to go back to the default light because this is sort of how I work. But you're welcome to choose a different font color or setting, or you can figure that out later on and share your settings with the rest of the group in iOS 6. Lastly, in text editing, I want you to set up line numbers. So just make sure that line numbers is enabled. This will show line numbers next to your code, which is really helpful when we have a problem. And it allows us to talk about the code. So if you're sharing your screen, I can tell you, okay, line 43, there's a problem, or line 15, there's a problem. All right, so just to test out these settings, what I want you to do is I just want you to type hello on line 18 in your view controller. And if you go ahead and build, what I'm expecting is that you should see a compilation error. So when you see something like this means that you have a problem. This isn't valid. We can't write something like this. Code is very sensitive. So as we're writing code, we have to make sure that it has to conform to what it needs to be. So this is not valid. If you want to fix this, you can either delete it or you can do the 2 forward slashes to make it a comment. And that will make it build. Okay. So now what I want to do is I just want to clean up the project a little bit, and we're going to get started with the user interface, and then we're going to take a break. So let's go back to our user interface. We're getting a bunch of warnings about things right now, and I want to go ahead and let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's go back to the storyboard file. We're going to make some modifications that are going to make it so that this doesn't work for a bit until we finish setting things up. But that's going to be okay. This is kind of a standard practice that we'll be doing. So both of these screens, or whatever screens that you added, we're actually going to go ahead and remove them because we want to control what we have. So this is the template view control. This gets created with every project. It's fine for demo projects or if you're just testing something, but we like to modify these and clean them up. So I'm just going to remove everything and we're going to start over from scratch just to show you how that looks. In order to do that, you want to look at the document outline right here. And if you don't see that, there's this little button over on the bottom right, bottom left corner that will show the document outline. Clicking that will make this appear, and you should be able to see your view controllers. I want you to select a view controller and then just hit the delete key, and that should remove it. And then I want you to select the other if you added any extras and just delete it. So you should have no view controllers. Next, what we're going to do is, if you see this view controller file that we modified before, we're going to remove this as well. This is just created automatically. We're going to be creating everything ourselves. So you can just right click on the view controller in the project navigator and hit delete, and then move to trash. Okay, so now if you try and run things, then we're going to have some problems. So don't worry if you try to run it and it crashes because we don't have things sort of set up anymore. So it's going to be a problem. When you see something like this, we will see some type of error. These types of errors are really helpful to Google. So when you see something like this, if you just copy the error message here, this will help you track down what's going on if you don't understand it. Now it's telling me that it failed to instantiate the default view controller, and that's because we removed everything. So there's nothing to show. Okay. The other thing that we have down here is the variable view. That's this little button. If we click this, it will make it disappear so that we can see more of our error messages, and that can make it a little bit easier to read. Now, I want to point out one thing. This is kind of frustrating. This came in, I think, Xcode 9. These messages are just garbage output from Apple. And so one of the things that can be a little bit challenging when you're first getting started is you start to see random messages that appear. These are not problems. These are just extra output from Apple. Apple's in the process of upgrading their APIs, and because of the way things are done right now, we get extra output in some of the older frameworks and code that they've already written. And so we'll see random messages sometimes appear. So if you ever see one of these, you can always Google it to see what other people say to see if it is a problem. And you'll get more used to this type of thing, and you'll know what to ignore as we continue to work with applications. All right, so the first thing that I want you to do, we're not going to need this bottom screen right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and hide it, hitting this button, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Command-Control-Y, or Command-Shift-Y. That will allow you to hide and show, Command-Shift-Y. And then all I want you to do is drag out a new view controller. So let's click on the object library, or you can do Command-Shift-L. That will show our object library. And we're going to add a new view controller, so you can just drag one out. And then I think we're going to take a break and we'll come back to this. So just drag a new view controller out, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. So you're welcome to mute your microphone. Well, it should already be muted. You're welcome to turn off your camera, get up, stretch, do some jumping jacks, do something to get the blood going again. Grab some new water if you need another drink. We'll have 5 minutes. I will use a timer on my screen so you'll be able to see it. And if anyone has any questions, you can ask them now. Otherwise, I'm going to go grab some more water.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Samara. My headphone that I usually use isn't linking to the computer. So, okay, that's all.
Paul, if you want to take your break, I'm going to be around for the 5 minutes anyway. I can answer any questions that anybody has.
Awesome. There's no rewind right now, but I am recording, and I will get this uploaded onto YouTube, and I'll share the link after it transcodes.
Hello?
Yeah. So deleting is always a weird thing on Apple. I was able to delete one thing just by hitting delete and agreeing to delete it. But you're saying you have to drag it to the trash sometimes?
If you are trying to delete like a file out of the left-hand panel, then you'll have to hold Command while you hit delete, and then it's going to ask you if you want to remove the reference or move it to trash. When you're just getting started, I highly recommend just removing the reference for first times, because sometimes it's very tricky. Sometimes it'll copy it and sometimes it won't. It just takes kind of experience to learn when it's going to actually copy the file. But if you just hit that remove reference, it's not going to actually delete it. It's going to keep it there. So unless you know for a fact that you have a copy, you want to always just remove the reference.
Okay, so we deleted the view controller that you created in the beginning.
Yeah, the view controller, It depends on which one we're talking about. If we're talking about the storyboard interface, we deleted that by selecting it, the view controller scene in the document outline, and then I just hit delete. And that's the delete key in the top right where the backspace button would be on a Windows computer.
Yep, and that takes everything away. Got it.
Yep. And then when you're removing a file, you can hit delete. It's dangerous to delete the storyboard or the asset catalog, and we'll be talking about that later on in this lesson, I think. So those are a little tricky to get back into the project.
And I probably selected the wrong thing when creating it, but I also have places tests and places UI tests, and you don't have those. So I'm assuming I should have unchecked those when I went into the project, right?
Yeah, and that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. It won't cause any problems today.
Okay, so don't delete those then.
Yeah, if you try to delete those, you'll probably break the project. So I would recommend keeping them.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Hey, Cameron, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, man?
So when do you suggest that we should buy the Apple developer account?
So you're not going to actually need it throughout the duration of this course. It's kind of like I already had a developer account. So until you feel like my recommendation would be around the time that labs become a thing. You're not actually going to be making, we'll make an app every day, right? But it's not going to be like an app store worthy app. So until you are ready to actually go in and start making those app store apps and publishing to the app store, that's when you'll need your developer account. Until then, I would refrain just because it's $100 a year. But like I said, you're not actually, you won't need it until you feel like you're actually ready to start publishing your apps to the app store.
Aren't there capabilities that you need that
No. So with a free account, you will get your I forgot what it's called, your bundle identifier. You can actually go ahead if you want to. I can post the link in our Slack channel. It will actually allow you to have your bundle ID, have all that good stuff. So you your team member ID. That's what it is. So whenever you make that is when you will actually be using your developer account. For now, I think it's appleid.apple.com. I might be wrong about that. If that's not right, try developer.apple.com. And then you'll need to, I don't know if it gives you access to App Store Connect with that, but try developer.apple.com and appleid.apple.com. Paul will be able to tell you for sure which one that is. Actually, I can look it up really quick.
What's the question?
He was asking when he needs his developer account, and I told him he can make a free one. Is it appleid.apple.com where they make their free one, or is it developer.apple.com that they make their free one?
It's going to be your Apple ID. If you've ever used an iPhone, it's whatever you signed in.
Yeah, so it's appleid.apple.com, and you can sign up to become a developer. Like I said, you won't be able to actually publish your apps to the App Store until you pay that $100 a year. But you can definitely you'll be able to set up your team member ID and all that stuff in appleid.apple.com.
All right. So we don't need that right now. It's totally fine to work with just the simulator. So it's something we can get squared away either this afternoon or later on this week. So if you do have questions with the Apple ID, we can work on getting that squared away. All right, so I'm just going to hit the stop button because it's right now crashed because we removed some of the interface files. So now what we're going to do is start setting things up. What I have in front of me is the storyboard. So click on main.storyboard. Make sure you're in main.storyboard. It is confusing because there's two storyboard files. One's a launch screen, which is not the right one. So if you're editing that one, you're not going to see anything when we run the application. So double check, make sure it says main.storyboard. This is the starting place for every application when we create it. And in here, we are going to set up the user interface. So I want you to open up that object library. That is Command-Shift-L if you want to do the keyboard shortcut. Or if you want to get the window to stay open, you could do Command, and this is a mouthful, this Command-Option-Shift-L. Well, you just add that Option key and it makes that appear. Or you can hold the Option key as you click on this button up top. All of those will get this to appear. Now I'm going to probably keep this in the grid view just because it allows me to see more things at once. But if you're not familiar with any of these UI controls, later this afternoon or this week, just take a look and see what you've gotten here and play with the different elements. Some of them are going to be a little bit more complicated to use. We're going to stick to keeping this pretty simple. So like these first sort of 4 are pretty easy to use. All right, so what I want you to do is you're going to look for the text field. You can type text field, and if you start typing text, it will search for you and show you them, or you can just click on text and drag that out. So I want you to create a text field, and we can just put it on the screen, and I want you to resize it. So once you put it on the screen, what I typically do is I align to these grid lines. Now these grid lines are going to be dependent on the iOS device that you're previewing in. If we look at the bottom of your screen, depending on how big your screen is, you should see a set of devices, or you should see this View As button. If you see this View As button, then I want you to click that, and this allows you to change your device. So right now, it's actually really hard for me to see because it's just a thin outline, but it's selected the iPhone XR, which is this device. You could be on the iPhone 8, and that's going to look different. They're different sizes, so your text view, if you've rearranged it, is going to look funny. I think for today, I'm going to recommend sticking to the iPhone XR. So just make sure that it's on iPhone XR, and you should see this notch along the top. All right, so once we have a text field, I want you to zoom into 100%. That's the center thing. If you are on let's say we're on a really skinny screen, you might not see the zoom controls. And so if that's the case, you can use the trackpad, or you can, I think, control click and scroll with your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. The trackpad allows you to move around the window. So it's a little bit harder to work with when it's super tiny, which is why I recommend sometimes making this a little bit bigger. So this will allow us to focus on the user interface. So just select 100%. That's usually makes it easiest to work with some of the controls. And now I'm going to show you a trick for duplicating. You can do a copy paste. So copy paste on Mac is Command C and then Command V. So that will create a paste of whatever we've selected. You can also do the same thing if you've ever used Photoshop or other vector-based tools like Sketch. You can hold the Option key to duplicate. So holding Option key, well, actually, it does 2 different things. Holding Option key, and if I hover over a UI element, you'll see a little glove, like a Mickey Mouse hand. When you see that, you can grab the UI element and you can create a duplicate of it. And then just let go of the mouse before you let go of Option, and it will create a third one. So we're going to need 3 of these text fields. So again, that is Option, click and drag to duplicate, or you can copy paste with Command C, Command V, and that will just paste a new one and you can rearrange them. If you have too many, just select the ones that you don't want and then press the delete key, and that should make them disappear.
Having trouble getting a view controller up. Did you say I don't have to press control to glide one onto the
So you gotta the view controller is this little icon, and you gotta drag a new one out, and don't drag it on top of a view controller. It won't place it for whatever reason. You have to drag it to open space on the canvas, so somewhere else in the gray area, and that will plop it down.
Okay, so the white square on the yellow circle, got it.
Yeah. White square, yellow circle is a view controller. Oops. All right, so the trackpad allows us to sort of move around. I'm using, typically I have 2 mice, though actually I've got sort of 3 in this setup. I've got my Mac computer on my right, It's on a stand. I can use 2 fingers to work with the trackpad. I also have a wired mouse. It's kind of like a gaming mouse. I like that for my right hand. I find that easier to use. And I also have a trackpad in my left hand, but I've got a couple cups in the way, so I can't actually reach that right now. So those are our text fields. This allows us to do user input. And now what we're going to do is add a button. So at the very top, you should see a button. Just drag one of these onto the screen. Okay, so next what I want you to do is set the placeholder text. So we're going to go to the attributes inspector over on the right. And for each of these, I might zoom in a little bit more so this is readable. We're going to go to the attributes inspector, which is this little slider icon. And when you click on these text fields, I want you to modify the placeholder text. So you should see a little thing for placeholder text. It should be like the 6 or so thing on that window, and you're going to type location name, press enter. And then we should see sort of in this gray font, location name. You're going to do the same for the others. And so I want you to type in latitude into the placeholder and then press enter. When we're working with Xcode and we're editing something like one of these fields, it's really good to press enter or tab to make sure that it auto enters and then it will appear. Now, if you double clicked, you could also edit this. So we could say like 90.7 or something like that. And this is going to put the text in there. This is like the user has typed that in. What we have as placeholder is sort of, it's going to be the text in sort of this gray font. And when the user taps on it, it's going to allow them to edit it. And it's not going to have this in it. It's going to basically delete this text and they'll be able to write their own text. All right, but I don't want to have any default values. So I just want to use the placeholder text. So for this last one, this will be our longitude. And this is going to be from -180 to 180. So these are sort of the approximate values for those things. And then I want you to modify the button. Just double click the button, or you can edit the button title over on the right. So if we double click, we'll just call this save place. And then if anything doesn't look like it's aligned properly, you can always just click on it and drag it around and place it with the sort of default placements. Now, default placements are usually about eight points away. I talked about the Alt or Option button doing multiple things. When I hold this, it will give me distances to different UI elements. This is useful when you're working with a designer and you want it to be a certain distance away. When I do this, we can see that this is 8 points away from the other text field. All right, so to keep things easy, all I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. So you can box select this once you've filled out these values. And I want you to click on the triangle TIE Fighter button and click on Add Missing Constraints. Doing this will give us some auto layout constraints, and hopefully that should be good enough to go, though we won't be able to test it just yet because we don't have the view controller code set up because we deleted that file. So we're almost done modifying the user interface, and then we'll get this set up so that we can actually see something again. All right, the next thing that I want to talk about is the initial sort of view controller. So I want you to click on the view controller. And John, are you having an issue?
Yeah, when I try and drag a view controller in, it drags in and then it doesn't stay, so I just have no scenes.
Are you dragging to the open space?
Yeah, well, I don't have any, there's nothing on mine, so it's blank, so that I'm dragging onto the blank screen that says no scenes on it.
Do you know how to share your screen with Zoom? There's like a little bar that has some options.
Up above or down below?
There's a little, it's a share icon.
It's down below. It's usually green with an arrow.
Oh yeah, share. Gotcha. Yep. You cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing.
Yeah, 1 second. I lost my window. Where did it go? Is anyone else having trouble adding a view controller?
How many should we have right now?
Just one.
So where should I put the view controller? Just drag it in?
Yeah, it just needs to be on the screen in the canvas. So our canvas is this gray area.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I have the wrong. Okay, hold on. Maybe I'm dragging it onto the wrong thing. Oh, I probably am. Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, I think so. It looks like there's.
Okay, I'm all set. I was dragging it on. I was dragging it onto the white space, which is, if you're selected on places, I was on basically, I don't know what you call it, the view controller scene. I don't know.
Okay.
I fix it. It's a gray space you drag it onto. All good.
Great. I'll just share a screenshot of what that should look like in Slack. Did that work? Okay, so next up, we're going to take this view controller and we are going to embed it in a tab view. So if you ever used Facebook or Instagram, they've got these buttons along the bottom of the screen. We're going to set that up for our view controller. So by clicking on the view controller scene, you are going to click on this bottom button. It's called Embed In. This bottom button, it should be the fourth icon from the right side. It's this little arrow going into a box. And we want to select Tab Bar Controller. So doing that, we should have a tab bar controller. And we can see that that is pointing to our view controller. So then we see that there's one item. It's our button. It's not customized yet. We will get to that in a minute. But that is our first screen on the tab bar controller. So now what I want you to do is select the tab bar controller, and then we have to make it so that it's the initial view controller. So in the attributes inspector, click on is initial view controller, and you should see this little arrow appear. This arrow means that this is the starting point. So just make sure that that is there. And then the next thing I want to do is to create another view controller. So we're going to drag another view controller onto the scene. So I'm going to click on the object library. You can use the keyboard shortcut. You're going to look for the view controller, which is the white square with the icon, and drag this out into the open area where you should see a plus. Once we do that, drag that down somewhere on the screen. It doesn't really matter where, however you want to organize it. If you want to move things around, we can sort of shift things up. There's going to be two screens in this application. And on this screen, we want to add a map view. So I'm going to bring up the object library again. And I'm going to add a map view. This is this little icon right here. So you should see this. And you just want to drag this out and put it onto the screen. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other thing that we need to do is we need to create a connection between these two view controllers. So these are basically, the tab bar controller manages multiple screens. So this is kind of like the little buttons that we get along the bottom. So you're going to right click and drag. That's going to create this line. And you're going to right click and drag from the tab bar controller. So somewhere on that iPhone screen to the other screen. You're going to make this connection, and this will show you a relationship segue, and you're just going to look for where it says relationship segue, and you're going to click on view controllers. So if you go ahead and do that, you'll see this little symbol appears. This is a relationship segue. And again, just to do that again, it's just a right click on the tab bar controller and then drag over to this and click on view controllers. So now we see that we have 2 button items. And now I want to finish customizing this last screen. So we're going to have this map view. I want you to sort of drag it to the top, and we're going to align it so that it just sort of fills out the whole screen. We can drag it to the very bottom, or we can drag it to the top of this. We can make it full screen if we just drag it to the bounds. And then for this, I want you, again, just to keep things simple, go to Add Missing Constraints. And that will give us some auto layout constraints so that it basically should fill the screen here. All right. So next up, what I want to do is I want to give you some images.
Hey, Paul.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Could you walk through that last part one more time? I added the new view controller.
Yep.
And just getting them to, I guess, the segues to the screen.
Yep. All right, I'll do that again. So any of these, we can always select the segue and we can remove it. So I just remove that, or you can use the undo. Undo and redo is actually really useful in our storyboard editor. So Brian, what I want you to do is, if you see your tab bar controller, I want you to right click on it in the canvas. And then if you right click and drag, you should be able to see this line. Now, if you're on a trackpad, on a trackpad, you need to use a 2-finger click and drag, or you can control click and drag. So there's 3 different ways to get this action to appear. So if I control and then left click and drag, that draws this line, or I can 2-finger click and drag. When we see this pop up, I want you to look for relationship segue, which should be in sort of the center. And then you're going to click on view controllers. And this just means the tab bar is going to manage our different screens. So it's going to manage 2 different screens. So that should give us a line.
I did it.
We good?
Also, Paul, when you first inserted the first tab bar controller, when I did that, it came with 2 screens attached to it, two views. Do I need to delete those views, or?
Yeah, so you added it a little bit differently. We did the embed button. So there's this little menu bar in the right corner that allows us to embed. But if you were to drag out a tab bar controller, which is, I think this one, like you said, it's going to have those 2 extra views, and you just have to remove them because we've already created our views.
It's better to use embed because then it pre-connects to your first.
It just less undoing or cleaning up. Brian, did that work?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So what we should have is that the map view is full screen. You've added the constraints by clicking on the triangle TIE Fighter button and doing add missing constraints for that map view. That way it will fill the screen on our device. Okay, so next up, I want to share, we've got some icons for you. I've got these place images. I'm going to pop these over into Slack. So places images. And I'll upload that. So if you download that zip, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if I go ahead and download this file, I should see it appear in my downloads. So if you go to your downloads folder, you should see a zip file. It may have unzipped it for you. It may have not. If it didn't, just double click it to unzip it. And then you're going to see these 4 files. So we've got globe and plus. And then we've got some 2x and 3x attributes on them. So now what I want you to do back in Xcode, once you've downloaded that from Slack, I want you to go back to what's called assets. This is the asset catalog. This is how we manage a lot of the images that we use in our iPhone apps. And in here, I want you to drag those images in. So if you've got a Finder window open, you can just drag those images from Finder into your your list here. Now you want to drag that into this white area. If you've got Xcode open and you've got Finder next to it, that's sometimes useful. And you just want to drag those 4 files into here, and that should automatically add them. So I'll do that one more time. I'm in the asset catalog. I'm going to find those images that I downloaded in Finder, which is in the downloads. I'm going to grab all 4 of them by sort of selecting them, holding Shift, and then I'm going to plop them right in. Now what this should do is it should arrange them so that you have a globe and you have a plus. We're going to have a 2x and a 3x version. These are for the Retina screens that allow us to have extra detail on the iPhone Retina screens. So for example, the iPhone XR that I'm testing with right now, this is a 2x Retina screen. But if I was testing with my iPhone Plus, this is a 3x Retina screen. So we need different size images so that things look sharp and crisp on these different devices. Otherwise, you'll have customers complaining about your app looking blurry.
The higher the density, the larger the image.
Yeah, so these are a little bit bigger. All right, so now we have some images, so we can hopefully jump back to main storyboard. And in this, we're going to modify these attributes. If you click on your view controllers at the very bottom, there should be this little tab bar item, or if we're looking at the document outline, which is this little icon over here on the left, in the document outline, you should see a star and an item. Clicking either of these is going to allow us to edit those attributes. So I want you to click on the top item. The order might be different in your scenes, so just click on whichever one has the location name and latitude and longitude. And I want you to modify the bar item. So we're going to change this to add place as the title. And if you hit tab or press enter, you should see that add place changes in the storyboard file. So it now shows that. And now we want to change the image. There's this drop down. If those images are added, you might see the globe or plus. I'm going to select plus for the place, and we should change that. Then I want you to do the same thing. We're going to have locations for the second one. So we're going to click on this one, and we'll call this locations. And then we will use the globe image here. So pressing enter and tabbing should allow us to set those up. Or actually, to sort of continue with the theme, let's call it places and not locations. So just change the title to places. And so now if I zoom back out, we should see our tab bar controller over on the left. I'm going to zoom in on this one. We're going to see that we have an add place button and we have a places button. So I have a question. Does anyone know why we use view controllers?
Don't all view controllers inherit from view controller? Like tab view controller, collections view controller.
Yep.
Because XIB isn't as fun.
Are you looking for design pattern?
Whatever you've got, Michael.
What was that?
What were you saying?
Are you looking for the answer related to design patterns?
Sure.
The design pattern of MVC, I believe, is what we're going to be learning first. Model view controller, so that you keep your data, your controllers, and your views separated in their logic and their purpose.
Okay. Awesome. So what we're really trying to do is control. We're trying to control different screens, and so we've got this concept of what we call a view controller. And in this case, for the most part, when we're looking at our screens, a view is a single screen. So this add place is a single view controller, and then we've got a. Actually, this one's not finished. We're going to actually edit this one. I forgot. But this one's going to actually have a map view and a table view. So we're going to actually have a screen where we have two view controllers contained within another view controller. So the view controllers themselves actually allow us to manage these different screens. And so we can sort of think of them as that, or they could manage portions of screens. So they don't always have to manage a full size screen. All right, so actually to refactor what we've done here, what I want to do is we're going to add, let's add our map view as a separate storyboard. So we're basically going to do the same thing here, but we're going to create what's going to be a container view. And let's sort of undo what we did here. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and create a new file. So I want you to click on main.
I have a quick question. In your the bottom one, the view controller, did you put a text field there that says navigate, or?
No, there's no text field here.
So how did you get that navigated there?
This
the
here?
word? No, in the middle.
This?
Yeah, this, yes.
Oh, it says, it's hard to read because it's so tiny, but it says MK.
Oh, okay.
But don't worry about
Put that?
We're actually going to be changing this because I just realized that I want to show you view containment.
Okay.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to go and actually, we don't need this map view. So if you did actually add the map view, it's fine. We're going to remove it from here. So I'm just going to click on it and hit the delete key. That I don't want you to delete the view controller. I still want the view controller. But we're going to change how this is actually set up. This will help you with the afternoon project. So what we're going to do is we're going to break apart our storyboard interface into multiple storyboards. And this is what you might see on a bigger team. So we're going to right click on where it says main storyboard in the left panel in the project navigator. And I'm going to say new file. And then I'm going to click on new file. And now what I want you to do is create a new storyboard file. So under iOS, select storyboard and then hit next. And this first one we are going to call, let's call it map view. So I'm going to select the text here and say map view.storyboard. And then we're just going to hit create. Make sure that targets is checked, otherwise this will cause problems. So we should see a check mark here and then hit create. And this will create a new storyboard file for us. So to set this one up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag another view controller onto the screen. This will give us more practice working with this. With this view controller, I want to make this the initial view controller. So if it's selected, or you can select on the view controller scene, I want you to go to the attributes inspector and make sure that that arrow appears for is initial view controller. So click this little check mark. We should get this little arrow. This is important. We need a storyboard entry point. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to drag the map view onto this view controller. So find the map view that should be in the center here, and then just make this fill the space. And just drag this down. And it should line up with the edges. You should see those little dashed lines. That means it's centered. Let go. And again, we'll hit that triangle TIE Fighter button and click on Add Missing Constraints. All right, so that's going to be our map view.
I missed a step when we were adding the new storyboard.
Yeah.
It went into the other. I didn't know where you clicked to.
I clicked on the map view storyboard.
So unclick targets. Is that what you want me to do?
No, I want you to keep that clicked. Don't click on.
Oh, okay.
Make sure it's checked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then I just need you to drag out a new map view, MK map view. If you pull open that inspector, just type map, and it should be the only one. If you just click and drag and drop, it should add it to the screen.
Yeah, if you can, when I click on the main story, because my clicker wasn't working, where do I go? If you could please repeat. So make a file, add files
Yeah.
to the places.
So I just want you to click over here on the left side and then click right. We'll do this again.
Thank you.
And then click on new file. Everyone else, I want you to do this a second time if you haven't already. And so there's going to be 2 files that we're creating here. So create another storyboard, and the first one should be called map view, which I've already added. And then the next one, this is going to be our table view. So I'm going to call this places table. And just leave the settings exactly like I have them here. So we should see that the check mark is checked for the target. That makes sure that it's installed on the iPhone when we actually run it. So that's really important. And then we hit create. So 2 different storyboards should be added now. And then in the places table view, we're just going to drag on a table view controller. So I'm going to clear my search. The table view controller is going to be this icon. It's the yellow icon with the rows. So the yellow icon with the square with the rows, just like a spreadsheet. We drag one of these out, that should give us a table view. Okay, so with the table view, we're going to select this top table view cell, and we are going to set this up in the attributes inspector. So click on the attributes inspector, which is that little slider icon.
I'm having a little trouble with my place dot storyboard and my map view dot storyboard. It's not it keeps giving me a message. It says the document map view dot storyboard could not be open, and it's unrecognized file content, so I can't really like move on.
So you can't open the file?
Yeah.
Can you quit Xcode and open it up again? So just, I want you to right click on Xcode and click quit.
Okay.
And if you do that, Xcode should close. And then I want you, once it closes completely, I want you to click on it again, and it should load up from where you last were.
All right.
Does that help? And now if you click on one of the files, do they open?
It's loading still. No, it's still saying unrecognized file content.
Is your main storyboard open?
Yes.
Okay, can you right click on main storyboard so that you see this window?
Yep.
And then can you click on new file?
New file. Okay.
And then make sure it says iOS in the top for the template.
Yep.
And then do you see storyboard for user interface?
Yeah.
Do that, hit next. Can you just call it map view 2 for me?
Okay.
And then do you see dot storyboard as the extension?
Dot storyboard. Where at?
In the save as, do you see the screen that I'm looking at?
Yeah, I see that.
And yours has the same thing?
Do I add the dot on there, or is it supposed to add by itself?
It might add it by itself. I don't know. Mine is doing it automatically, so yours might be behaving a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Does yours not have an extension in the navigator?
It doesn't have an extension. It just so it just lets me add the. I mean, I just add the dot. So.
And did that one work when you hit add?
No, it still's unrecognized file content.
Well, really quick, do you know if Slack made it to where you can only video call through Zoom?
I don't know.
Okay.
Stephen, I'm not really sure. I can have you try and share your screen. Do you know how to do that with Zoom?
Just share the share button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just show us what you're seeing right now. Maybe we can figure that out real quick.
There you go. So I just go here.
Okay, can you just show me what error message you're seeing?
Oh yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
That's the error message.
Okay. And then the new one you added is not working either?
Yeah, that one.
Are you out of disk space or something?
Question.
You might be having some kind of...
Is that...
I hate to jump in, but a couple of people said the extension might have to be lowercase.
Oh, that's
This
interesting.
is uppercase, so I don't know if that makes a difference.
I can try that.
Yeah, if you just click on the storyboard over on the left, just click twice slowly, or maybe once slowly, and then see if you can edit that. Not the actual .s. I don't know if that would make a difference.
The word story.
Oh.
This is acting like it's actually not creating it. So you might just have to sort of try and watch now and then follow along later. Or I can try and zip up what I have and share it and see if that gives you a starting point. Let me zip up what I have. And if that doesn't work, we're gonna have to figure out if you're like low on computer memory or something and it's just failing to create files because of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just want me to watch then for now?
For right now, but I'll just zip this up and you can let me know if this works. So I'll do show in Finder from Project Navigator, and then it's really important when you want to zip a Xcode project that you get the whole thing. So both of these things are important. So it's easiest just to zip this up. And then this is, I'll just call this -1 because it's not fully functional yet.
Okay.
But you can see if this fixes your problem. Okay, so I want to keep going. Steve, I'll keep sharing once I hook this all up if that's not working. So
okay,
you should be able to at least follow along and then watch the video and catch up.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so the next thing that I want to do is show you how to customize the table view. The first thing that we're going to do is set the table view style to basic. And that's going to give us a title here. So it's going to kind of look like the Contacts app. And when we do that, there's one other setting that we need to set, and that is the reuse identifier. So these two settings are going to be really important, and this setting is going to be really, really important. So we're going to call this a place cell. Now, notice my spelling. I am doing place cell, and it's what I call capital case. So I've got a capital P, and then I've got a capital C. I want you to do this anytime we're doing an identifier. We always use capital case, and spelling is really important because if we spell it wrong, then we're going to have problems later on. So that sort of sets this up, but we also need to make this the initial view controller. So I'm going to click this checkbox. We should see that arrow appear, and then we should be pretty good to go with the setup in this one. All right, so
we can take like a 2-minute break. I got like 3 people messaging me that I'm trying to get caught up really quick.
Yeah, we could take a 5-minute break.
Is it possible to talk while he's doing that? just to go over everything that we have.
Yeah, I can review what we have if we want to do that.
Also, if you're having any issues, please message me or another project manager. We'll get you caught up.
Just real quick, what did you set the identifier as?
Yeah, if you could repeat that.
So what I want you to do is within a table view scene, we have the table view itself, and then inside the table view, we have a table view cell. A cell is basically a row in the table view. So I want you to select that. Generally, you can select it right here underneath the table view, or you can select it by clicking on the UI. It should select the table view cell. Then over in the right panel, we're going to customize it in the attributes inspector. So I want you to select basic and then set the identifier to place cell. So I pasted that word in Slack. It's just going to be a way that we can refer to it. So it's important that we just call it place cell. So we're basically going to be storing places or locations, and a typical convention is to call it whatever you're going to call it, and then cell as the second word.
Can you go back to main.storyboard? So here we have a view controller in the bottom.
Yep.
Wait, for places,
Yeah.
these are two view controllers, right?
Yep. There's two view controllers. We're going to be modifying this one in a moment.
So then why do we have two view controllers, and then like what's the places table? Like what's the table view controller in places?
No, Jano, what is wrong with you?
So if I were to, let's see if I can run this now. If I were to run this right now, you should see one screen appears. And then if I click on places, we should see a second screen, which is now, it should be blank, or it might have a map view if you didn't remove it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to have these two different screens. And this is what we're trying to build is the interface. If I go to the home screen, I have this places demo. We're trying to set it up so that we have a map on the top, and then we have a list of locations on the bottom. Does that
Okay, so the places table view controller is just for that little segment?
Yeah, and I'm going to show you how to combine those two.
Okay.
So we're going to basically take our two storyboards
and then
merge them into that one screen.
Okay.
So we're going to do that, and it's called view controller containment. So there's going to be a container for the top one, and then there's going to be a container for the bottom one.
Okay.
It's a little bit complicated. We've essentially got two screens, but our second screen has two view controllers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so view controller containment is embedding different view controllers into one other view controller.
Yep.
Another.
And then, Paul, did you say that this table view needs to be an initial view controller as well?
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't do that,
we have two initial view controllers. Then is that right?
Every storyboard file needs to have an initial view controller. That's just how they work.
Right.
There's another way around it, but I don't want to go into that today because that requires writing extra code. So
Sure.
I'll just do it this way because this is simple.
Cool. Thanks.
How do I put a name inside the map storyboard? Where do I write the name for the map? I see current mode semantic, but I can't type anywhere like the map storyboard.
Can you share your screen?
Let me see. You want me to say share?
Yes.
Let's just accept it. See it? How do I write names here? Because I see this, I put the name here, place cell. But for this one, how do I write the name in here?
Oh, for that one, we add a map view. So I want you to click on that object library button
Okay.
and then type map. And you should see a map. If
This
you
one?
drag that, yep. Just drag that onto the screen.
Okay.
There you go. And then make it full screen. So you just resize it to fit the size of the iPhone. So grab those little corners.
Oh, this one right here?
Yep, and just resize that.
Okay.
And you'll want it to fit the entire, all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom.
Like that.
Yeah, you're over just a little bit, so just see if you can get it. It's weird now because we have a non-rectangular screen.
Okay. Yeah.
If I share my screen, I'll show you how mine is set up so that you can try and match it. And if you're ready to move on.
One quick question. So the map view storyboard should be a regular view controller, and not one with a prototype cell?
Correct.
Okay.
So let me pull up the map. And if I zoom out just a tad, we can see that I've got this set up all the way to the bounds. So you just want to make sure you go all the way to the top, and you should see those dashed lines, and then you should get like a crosshair appear if it's totally centered. You might need to modify both sides to get that to match. So that's our map kit view. And then what I did is I added auto layout constraints. So if you click on it, and then you click on the triangle TIE Fighter looking button down in this bottom right corner, just click on the add missing constraints, and that should make it so that it matches those edges.
Paul, quick question. Where do I go to make it the initial screen again? In the map?
Yep. So what I want you to do is click on View Controller.
Okay.
That little icon in the top bar. This bar lets us move view controllers around, and then it has this little icon on the top left. You click on that, that selects it, and then over in the Attributes Inspector, there's this little checkbox that says Is Initial View Controller. So if you find that in the Attributes Inspector, just enable that.
Thank you.
Can you click through again before you proceed through the 3 storyboards real quick, just so we can check and make sure they all look good?
What's your question?
Can you click through the 3 storyboards that you have, just so we can make sure they all look good?
Yeah. So the places is our table view, and if we look over on the left, that's going to be this chunk that's going to have a list of places that we can be at. This is going to have our table view cell, which I've changed to basic as the style. So there's 4 different style options. And then I've just set the place identifier. So I just want you to type in place, where it says reuse identifier, type place cell, and then press enter. That's all we need to do to customize this one. This one's ready to go because we're using a table view controller. Then we've got our map view, which is set up. We added the auto layout constraints. We added the map view so it fills the whole screen. And we didn't have to do anything else yet to that. Now we're going to come back to our main storyboard, and we're going to modify this.
So you said every storyboard you should check is initial view controller?
No, but because I'll share stuff in a second. We broke out some of the functionality into 2 other screens. And we're going to do what's called the storyboard reference to refer to those screens from this one. So now what I want everyone to do is open up main.storyboard, and then we're going to zoom in on this bottom one. And we're going to do some view containment. So what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can get this to work. I'm going to click on this button, and I'm going to look for this. It's like this outline of a sort of a box. It kind of looks like a portrait photo. This is a view container. We're going to drag 2 of these onto the screen, but we'll start with 1. And when we do that, we are going to see that it's going to add an extra view controller down here. We're going to get rid of this one. This is extra, and we can move it around or we can delete it. So this is going to be another screen that can be sort of embedded within another screen. And so this is how we're going to do it. But we don't want this screen. We want to actually do what's called a storyboard reference so that we can refer to our 2 other files. So on the top, we're going to want our map view like we see over on the left. This is going to be our map view. And then on the bottom, we're going to want our list view, which is the table view. So all I want you to do is once you've dragged one of those view containers out, I want you to select it and press delete. That will make that one go away. So I just box selected and deleted it. So if you just select all of this, we don't want this connection. It just gets added by default. So I will press delete. Once we do that, I now want to set up a storyboard reference. And again, I'm going to open up my object library. I'm going to hold the Option key as I click on it just to make it stay open. This icon, this sort of dashed line that looks like the view controller icon, this is a storyboard reference. When you drag this out into the gray area, it will create a reference for us. And now the magic here is to right-click on this UI view and then right-click and drag to the storyboard reference. So if you got a 2-finger or 2-button mouse, you can right-click and drag. If you've got the 2-finger gesture with the trackpad, that's 2 fingers, click down, drag over to the right, and we're going to select the embed option. So I'll show this again, but what we should see is that this creates this embed segue is what it's called. So I'll just undo what I just did with Command Z. I'm going to right click on this container view and I'm going to drag over. And I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to select the embed option. Right.
How do I get that storyboard reference that you just
That's this little icon right here.
Oh.
So if you switch, you might be on this objects list. If you click on the grid view, you can see more options, and then just scroll down. We're going to be working with these 2 elements. So drag a storyboard reference out, and then we're going to drag another storyboard container. This is going to be for our bottom table view. So our table view down here on the left on the iPhone, we're going to sort of set these up. So then I'm going to right click on this second one and go to this storyboard reference and click on embed. So we should now have 2 container views. They're not resized yet. And the storyboard references actually aren't set, but we should be able to run this application, and we're going to see some funky stuff. We might not see anything. We'll see. So if I switch over to places, we can see that it's actually showing me the tab bar again, and so it's embedded the main tab bar again, and that's because we haven't configured it. So now what I want to do to configure it is I'm going to find my storyboard reference, the top one that I first added, and I'm going to go to the attributes inspector, which is this little icon, and then instead of doing main, I'm going to switch this over to map view. So whatever you named your file, that should be the name of this storyboard reference. There's no extension, it's just whatever is in that drop down. I want you to do the same thing for the second one. We set the second one to the places table. So doing those 2 things, if I were to run this again and switch over to that second screen, we should see we've got a map view on the top, and then we've got like a little chunk of the table view on the bottom, but we need to resize things because this is really not gonna work. We want to see the whole thing. Okay, so to finish this up, what I want you to do is resize those views. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to take this top view, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to drag it to that top left corner. And then I'm going to grab that bottom right corner and I'm going to resize it to fit most of the way down. So about half the screen. I'm going to drag the next one underneath it. I'm going to leave a little gap, and I'll show you how to fix this in a second. But this is going to be a little bit easier in my opinion. I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap, and I'm going to drag this all the way to the bottom right corner. So we should be flush on the left edge. So however you laid it out, just plop it on the left edge, and then we'll resize it to fit by grabbing the bottom right corner, drag it until you get that center dash line up here, which sort of shows you that we're matching the extent, and then let go. So we should have two views now, and if I were to hit the run button and sort of jump into the app, I should see something. But now I want to set up the auto layout constraints. So for this one, I want to try not using, what we have should be okay for right now, but I want to show you how we can get this to sort of work a little bit better. And it's okay if you don't get this working right now, but I want you to select both of these two things. So holding the Shift key, and I want you to click on each one of these. So click on one, then hold Shift and click on the second one. That should select both of our, our container views. And actually, before we do that, let's rename them. So if you see your document outline, I want you to call the top one the map view container. And then I want you to call the second one underneath it, just make sure it's the second one. This should be our places table container. This just keeps it organized so that we know what we have here. And we can also select things in our document outline. That's another good place to select things if they're hard to select on the canvas.
How do you do change name again? Where do you click?
If you just click on it and press enter, it should bring up the dialog to change name. Or if you click on it twice, but slowly, not fast, not a double click, but like a slow double click, it should allow you to change the name.
I have a question about the table view embedded right.
Yep.
With it being sized underneath the tab bar controller, could there possibly be things hidden behind there, or is that what you're about to address right now?
There could be, and that's something that we can address later on. I'm not too worried about that right now. And some of these controls, like the navigation bar and the tab bar, will actually push content up. So it will create sort of what's called the safe area. So we shouldn't really have to worry about that, but that's something that we could look into later on.
Okay.
Yep, good question. Okay, so I want you to select both of these. So click on one of them and then hold Shift and click on the second one. You should have two different container views selected. And now what I want you to do is I want you to click on the Add Constraints button. That's this square TIE Fighter button. And I want these to be equal heights. So I'm going to click on equal heights. And then I'm also going to click on these I-beams. So just click on these I-beams. They should say 0. It's okay if they're not perfectly flat with the edges. We're going to see multiple on the top too. So you're going to click on the eyes. So we should see these little eyes. And then you're going to click on the eyes on the left and the right that are sort of horizontal. So click on all four so that they become red. If they're not filled in, just make sure that they are. And then click on equal heights. That will make these two things the same height. So it will be equal heights. And if we click on Add Constraints, say, what do we get? So now we've got two different views. They have equal heights. And if you want, you can leave it as this, or if you want this extra space to go away, you can click on this extra space and change whatever random number you have. It might be 23. It might be something different. Just change it to 0. So I did that by double clicking. This can be really hard to click on, so I'm not worried if this doesn't work perfectly right now, but you just click on this little line in between And if you double click it, which is hard to do, you can set this to 0. Okay, so now when we run it, there should be no gap in between, and they'll both be the same size. So we should see something that looks like this, and we have a map, we have our table view, and we're sort of good to go. There is an issue with my button, and that's because the default setting here is not really what we want. And this is because the add constraints button is actually not really a good thing to use, but I was trying to do it to save some time. But if you hit that button, it added this constraint, and for whatever reason, what is going on here? It's not respecting the size of this button, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this constraint. That's this little line leading in, and I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to press the delete key. That's going to make it go away. Now the button is no longer being clipped. And what I really want this to do is I want this to be centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, let's see, I think it's this button, this third button. This is the alignment button. And I want to horizontally center this button in the container. So I'll add this constraint. And now when I run it, it should say save place, and it should not be clipping.
Can you do that one more?
Yeah, I can do that again.
Please, thank you.
Okay, so and this is an unfortunate side effect from the button that we hit. We used the triangle TIE Fighter button to add missing constraints. It's not smart enough to add this correctly, and so sometimes the thing doesn't work. So click on if your button is clipping like mine was, click on the button and then click on this constraint in front of it. This is this line. It's really hard to click on sometimes. So the other place to find it is in this list. And you're going to look for save place. There's a filter option down at the bottom. If we type in save place, which is the name of the button, we should see something that says save place.leading. And we really don't want this. So what we want to do is click on that constraint, either in the document outline or on the canvas, and then press delete. Now, in order to center this, there's this third button on the bottom. It looks like 2 rectangles in alignment. We're going to click on that align button, and you're going to click on center horizontally in container. And then you're going to hit add one constraint, and you should see a vertical line appear, and that should be centered. Are we good, Jordan? Awesome.
Yep, we're all good.
So now when we run it, hopefully we now have our user interface set up so that we can start connecting things to code. So we should have a map view, we should have a table view, and we should have this text field. So now what I want to do, I want to take, I know this one's a little bit beefy. I want to take a 5-minute break, and I want you to get up, stretch, grab some more water. We're going to come back and we're going to finish this project. Any questions?
Yeah, all of my fields aren't showing up on the add place screen. I love constraints.
When we name text fields or buttons, there's the section in the inspector that says text, but then there's also placeholder text. And I know placeholder is usually like, if you're doing an app and it says type in your name, it'll be like a grayed out thing that'll say name. And that's what placeholder is. But are your latitude and longitude text fields, is that the placeholder that's in there, or that's just the text?
This is placeholder. So you can see I've got the simulator running. So I've written Rochester, New York, and then if I'm typing in latitude, it's something like 47 or so, and I can just type in another value. It's like negative I'm forgetting what it was. But I can just type in some values and it will replace that placeholder text.
Understood. So in your inspector for, say, the text field, your text will name that, so that if you have to adjust the code, the Swift code or something, that's what it'll be called. But the placeholder is just what's visually that you would see.
Yeah, and there's an option to programmatically set the placeholder in code. So this is just exposing some of those attributes to us. So placeholder is here, and then we've got text here. So I could set the text to default to New York City. And then if I tabbed over, we would see New York City, so that when I run it, it would always say New York City instead of just the placeholder text.
So my thing is saying build fail. So does that mean because I haven't programmed it, it's not putting up like the way you have yours running in your simulator? Because it doesn't run in the simulator. I just see the simulator, but just the main screen.
Yeah, you've got a problem that we need to get fixed. It'd be best to share your screen. I need to take a break real quick. I will be right back. But if
all right, thank you.
PMs are here, maybe they can walk you through it. I'll let you.
I do want to state for the record, I will be doing, for everybody that fell behind a little bit during the class, I will be, during lunch, I'm already meeting with one student. If anybody else wants to join in, if you want to eat and go and kind of review what we've done today, feel free. And I'll tell everybody this after the break too, but just send me a private message and I'll add you to the group.
Yeah, so if you want to share your screen right now, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry, who was that talking, by the way?
Cameron, just Cameron Dunn, just send me a private message on Slack and just let me know that you're a little bit behind. I'll add you. I'll get us all together and we'll take a crack at it. Well, if you guys don't care to eat lunch, that's kind of what we decided on. We're going to eat and kind of review it at the same time.
That's the screen I have.
So what are we looking at right now? I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second.
Yeah, basically if you look at the simulator, it's saying build fail. So
okay, can you scroll down a little bit for me in the left-hand side? No, on the left-hand side? Yeah, yeah, right here.
I think you're here.
Click on that red arrow. It's because you don't have an entry point, so go back to your storyboard. The file icon, click on the file icon.
Yeah.
And then go to main.storyboard. And then scroll up a little bit to that first view controller. That one right there, the tab bar controller. Click on that and then click, you have an initial view controller. Go to your app delegate.swift.
Which one? Sorry. This one. Oh, okay.
That's not right. Where did you don't have a view controller, that's why. So right click on anywhere right there.
Okay, right click.
And then click a new file.
Okay.
Click click Cocoa Touch class at the very top left. Next.
Okay.
And then change that to subclass of UI view controller. Or just type in view controller. Yeah.
Okay. Space or no space?
I personally use camel case. It's really up to your preference. And then subclass it of type UI view controller. Just type, UI view controller, that third one down. And then click next. And just click create. That's fine. And then go back to your storyboard. And then click on the little yellow icon above your click on the add places right there where it says add places in your storyboard.
Oh, this one?
No.
No.
To the right.
Places.
To the right.
Okay, hold on.
Go back
Storyboard.
And then click where it says add places above the view controller.
Oh yeah, I see that.
No. Yeah, that'll work. Click on the attributes inspector, the one that looks like a business card on the right. Far right. Far right.
Far right.
The
Oh,
right
okay.
panel.
Oh, yeah, like right here. Yeah.
And then click class and type in view controller.
That one?
That's it. Yeah, click that. And now try and run it.
So just saved automatically?
It will save automatically, yes. Let's make sure that's going to work.
It's the places table storyboard. You were right about the entry point.
Oh, is it her places? Okay. So click your folder again. The folder on the left side, and then go to your places table.storyboard. Click the yellow icon above the view controller in your storyboard. So not in the gray background. The thing that has the gray background.
Oh, yeah.
The little yellow icon. And then type in view controller in the class.
We haven't set any of these yet.
Oh, is that why she's getting a no entry point?
Because that's where I was lost. It says.
Yeah, you don't want to type that there.
She just has to make an entry point, like instead
okay.
The initial view controller.
Yeah.
And click is initial view controller.
So okay. I'll take over. So click on the attributes inspector, which is that little slider icon right next to what you.
So you want me to?
Attributes inspector is the slider icon.
Oh, yeah, this one right here.
And click on is initial view controller.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Okay.
So now you have that little arrow.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's go to the map storyboard and click on this view controller.
Right here.
And then click on is initial view controller over in the.
Again, okay.
Okay.
I think that's the one I skipped.
Something here for the attribute for the identity inspector. That little Cameron said it was the business card. It kind of looks like a driver's ID.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, nope, that's fine for right now. And then go to the error panel for me. This fifth icon on the left, the issues navigator on the left panel.
This one?
No, left side of the screen.
Oh, left side. Okay.
Click on the triangle exclamation point.
This one?
There's a couple on the screen, so it's
yeah.
Can you just hit Command R or hit the play button? I want to see what error we're having. All right, so if anyone sees these misplaced views, if you click on the view, so your map view that you have on the screen, if you just in the very bottom, there's this little, it almost looks like a recycle icon. It's next to the triangle TIE Fighter buttons. So you see the triangle TIE Fighter in the very bottom of the storyboard file?
Here?
No, the storyboard. Do you know what a TIE Fighter is from Star Wars?
No, I don't watch Star Wars.
Okay, sorry. There's this little very bottom right corner of your screen.
Is it on the left or?
Right corner, right corner.
Right corner.
Do you see that little triangle with
yeah,
lines?
this one?
Yep.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, left of that, there's a little recycle looking icon.
Yeah, this one.
It's called Update Frames. Click that. And okay, so that will make it so that it's sort of in this new position. That's fine for right now. That will make some of the errors go away. I think you're okay to go.
Okay. Yeah, now I see this. This is what I wasn't seeing earlier. And I think it's because I didn't connect. I missed the step.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we still have a good amount to get through. So if you do fall behind, I'm going to ask that you just sort of watch what we're doing and then try and follow on afterwards.
Again, I said this during the break, but I will be going over kind of a rushed review of what if you've fallen behind after. We're probably going to be doing it during lunch, but if you guys want to eat and do it alongside, that's fine.
Okay, so as a sort of a show of hands, can you raise your hand if you have everything sort of up to this point?
You had something about copying from Slack some code or something. That's the only part I missed.
It was some images. I don't think I pasted any code there yet, except a little identifier.
Fudge.
Ryan, are you stuck?
No, I just can't find my stupid raise hand button.
Okay.
Also on the tab bar controller, the menus at the bottom, mine still just say item, item. I know you changed those somehow.
Yeah. So you click on that, and then did you add the images or not?
No.
Okay, we can cover that later, but you click on this and then it allows you to edit in the attributes inspector. You can change the title to add place. Since you don't have the images yet, don't worry about it. You'll still be able to get things working.
Okay, so just let it say new item for now.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool. All right, I'll zip up what I have if that helps anyone, and then we're going to continue with the code. So we're going to start linking things to code. There's a lot of opportunities for things to not work. So if they don't work, I'm just going to ask you to follow along because there's going to be a good amount, but I will share everything once we finish, and then we'll have a chance to review things later on. But I want to try and get through this because I don't want to keep you here forever, and I do want to get to lunch. Let me just share this sort of second version. This has awesome. Well, this is exciting. We've got our first app UI and we've got it customized, and now we want to make it functional. So the next step is to start linking things together. And again, we're gonna see the same type of process as we work on apps throughout Lambda School, where we're going to customize user interfaces and then we're going to link them to code. So what we've done to this point has been to just hook everything up visually. Now we want to hook things up in code. And to do that, we're going to have to add some new code files. All right, so we're going to create, let's see, we're going to create 3 new code files. I want you to right-click. You can right-click on places, or you can right-click on any of the files in this area and click on New File. That's going to add a new file underneath this sort of folder structure. So it's just a nice, easy way to add a new file. So I want you to right-click, New File, and then we're going to give these some names. So this first one is going to be for this screen, and we're going to call this this is going to be a Cocoa Touch class. So you should see iOS, Cocoa Touch class, and we're going to hit next. We're going to make this a subclass of UI View Controller. You should see this in the drop down, though there might be a lot of options. So just type UI View Controller. Again, spacing and spelling, is going to be very important. It's a capital UI, capital V, capital C. So UI View Controller, this is a special class that Apple has written for us that handles a lot of the magic that makes our screens work. We're going to call this Create New Place View Controller. So what I want you to do is type Create New Place View Controller. Now, as a code style, we're going to do capital case. Capital case means a capital letter for every word. So that means a capital C for create, capital N for new, capital P for place, and then Xcode will, by default, sort of append view controller if you've selected view controller. The language we're going to choose is Swift, and we don't create the XIB file because we've created a storyboard file. An XIB file is a very similar to a storyboard file, but slightly different. So we're just going to go ahead like this. And again, I'm going to refer to capital case many times. Whenever we're doing identifiers or class names, we always use a capital case, which means capital letters for every word. I'll hit next. I'll make sure I just hit the create button. You shouldn't have to hit anything else, just hit create. And we should see a new file appear. So we now have a create place view controller. We're going to do the same thing again. So we're just going to right click over in this navigation bar and add another new file. Again, click on Cocoa Touch class. And then this one is going to be a visited places view controller. This code file is going to be for our second screen, which is the places screen. So this screen, this has two view controllers, and this screen itself, when we click on this is going to be the visited places view controller. So again, I'm doing capital case, capital V, capital P, and then again, it's a subclass of UI view controller. Anytime we have a screen or a subscreen, in this case, they're going to be UI view controller classes. Okay. So then we'll go again with Swift, and then we'll hit next. I'll hit the create button, and that should add this to my project as well. So now we have two new code files. Next up, I want to create a places tab bar controller. This is going to be able to manage the buttons that we have down at the bottom. So we're going to need to create another class code file to manage these two buttons along the bottom of the screen in our application. So again, let's create another new file. Click on Cocoa Touch class for iOS, hit next, and then let's call this one the places. And I want this to be a tab bar controller. So in this list, there's a lot of classes, so we're just going to write it out. So it's going to be a capital UI tab, and then we're looking for bar controller. Okay, so you should have UI tab bar controller as the subclass. That's what represents these buttons along the bottom. This manages multiple screens with tab bar items. We are going to call this one the places tab bar, and view controller is fine. So I'll call it places tab bar view controller. And then it will be Swift. I will hit next, and I will hit create. Okay, so we've created three new code files. We've created the create new place view controller, the visited places view controller, and the places tab bar controller.
Within that view, can we click and drag the order if we want to change the order of just where the files are listed top to bottom?
Oh, yeah. And actually let's see, we have two more files we need to add. So we'll organize this in a second. I'm going to create another new file. Now what I want to create a file for, I want to be able to manage this map view. So this is going to be a view controller itself. And I also want to manage the table view. So again, we're going to create two more code files. So this one is going to be a subclass of a UI view controller. And this one's going to be called our map view controller. And we just need to type map. So with that, I will go ahead and hit next and create that. And there's one more code file I want to create, and then I'll show you how to organize them.
Paul, did you say that was going to be a UI view or UI view controller?
View controller.
Oh, not a UI view.
No. All right, so for this one more Cocoa Touch class. Now this one's going to be different from the others. This is going to be for our table. So this will be a table view controller. So you should type down here UI table view controller. You can press tab to autocomplete. The table view controller is going to manage this bottom portion of our application. And we're going to call this one I want to call it places table view controller. So you just need to name it places table view controller. Okay, So now I'm going to hit next, and now we should have, I think, 5 new code files. I'm going to select them all, so I can click on one of these code files and I can shift click on the others and it will select all of them in a row or all of them in a column. And I'm going to say a new group from selection, or I could just do new group. And then I'm going to rename this group. This is going to be called our view controllers. So this is, John, how you can organize things. You can also just drag and drop things. So you can click on something and drag and drop it to reorder the order here. So feel free to order them however you want. Next up, I want to grab all the storyboard files and I'll put those in another. And why don't I show you how to just drag and drop? So I'm going to right click here and just say new group or new group from selection. It looks like I selected that. So I'll just right click new group from selection and I will call this storyboards. And then you can select all of our storyboard files and just drag them underneath that. You can leave the launch screen down at the bottom, or you can, we can move that up, that's fine. The last one I'm going to show, this can cause a problem. When you move this info plist, it will potentially cause a problem. So we can group these two. If we select these two items and we say new group from selection, we can put it in a new group. We can call this resources. The challenge when we do this is this info plist it gets moved into a folder called resources. And so then we're going to see a problem potentially on our places project settings. So if you do this folder and you move info plist in your project, which you should be seeing probably in today's project and later on throughout the course, one thing you'll have to do is you have to click on the places project at the very top, this blue icon. Then under general in the center, we should see that it says identity, and it can't find the plist file because it's moved. So we need to click on this and then select it from this list. Again, to do that, click on the choose info plist file and then select the appropriate plist, which is now in a new folder because we've rearranged things. Hit choose. And we're not going to see anything change right away. You have to click on another file. So click on like the appdelegate.swift and click back. And now you should see this top portion actually looks like it did before. We should see our bundle identifier and the version number. So if you build your project, it should still build. It should still run. We've got a few new code files that we now need to connect to our user interfaces. Okay, so that next step, what we're going to do is we're going to connect user interface to code. So we've got a map view controller. That's this code file. I want this to be linked up to the map view storyboard. So to do that, I'm going to go into the view controller in the storyboard and I'm going to click on the view controller scene. And then I'm going to go to that driver's license icon over on the right, identity inspector. That's this little icon over on the right side. In here, we get to type a custom class, and this is going to allow us to link this to the code. So I want to type map view controller, and I should have a drop-down or I should get autocomplete. These are the different view controllers that are applicable here. So map view controller will link this together. We'll see that this now changes to map view controller scene. So when you set the class type, that will make this automatically match up. It's a sort of a two-step process. We have to create the user interface file. I guess a three-step process. We create the user interface file, which is the storyboard. We create the code file, which is the Swift file. And then we have to link the two together. We have to tell the storyboard about the other file. And we do that by setting the custom class in the identity inspector.
Can you go over that one more time? The one you just dragged, the map view controller.
Yeah, so when we, by default, create a new view controller, it will just say view controller scene. We'll click on where it says view controller scene, either in this document outline on the left, or we can click on this little icon right above a iPhone screen. It's called view controller. Then you're going to click on the identity inspector, which looks like a driver's license or a business card ID. This icon in your right panel, this is the identity inspector. We're going to see this panel a lot. Inside here, we'll see a custom class, and then inside there, there's a text field for where it says UI view controller. We need to change this to map view controller.
How do I get my screen back, the simulator where you're just working on right now in the middle?
You have to click on
this
the
part.
map
Yeah.
view controller. We're in the map view storyboard.
Yeah, it's going to the codes. Like it has a coded part.
If you've set up, do you see two windows open right now?
Yeah, I have only this one, the one on your right, with the import UI.
Yeah, so you need to click on the map view storyboard file over on the left panel,
Okay. Okay, I got it.
and then select the view controller, and then set the class. And we're going to do this again. So we're going to do this for the places table as well.
Okay.
So essentially we want to set this so that the code is connected. Now let's go to the places table, and we want to connect this. So we're going to select the view controller in the document outline, or you can click on that little icon up top. Both ways will select it. And here we type in, this one's called places table view controller. The autocomplete should show us just a couple options, and then we should be good to go. Press enter or tab, and it should autocomplete and connect it. When you've set it up correctly, it should say the name of the view controller.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so that's our two files that are set up. We still also need to set up the main storyboard. And so in here, we've got essentially three view controllers, and it looks like I added an extra one by accident. So I'll just remove this extra one just by clicking on it and pressing delete. So we've got the tab, we've got the add locations, and then we've got the other screen that we created that's the combination. So let's start with the tab bar controller. We're going to make this the places tab bar view controller. So we'll select it either in you can select the scene, or you can select the class. Anytime you select the scene, it will actually zoom to it, which is useful. So I tend to select it in the document outline. Again, we're going to go to the identity inspector and then set the class type. And this one should be places tab bar view controller. And it should autocomplete. Press tab to finish or press enter, and that will hook that up. We're going to do the same thing for the other two. So select the view controller by clicking the button in the top or clicking on the add place scene. Click in that class text field, and then this one is going to be the create new place view controller. I'll press tab to autocomplete, and that will give us the create new place view controller. So you should see that name here. And then we'll select the very last one, which is this one down here. Again, clicking on places scene will zoom us to that, and we can set this one up. This one we call the visited places view controller. So that last one is the visited places view controller. Okay, so this step basically, if we've done it all, we've connected, that's 5 different code files to 5 different screens. So now we have a connection that's going to allow us to connect the code to the user interface. Can you raise your hand if you have this connected for all 5?
Just missing the one that has the lat and the long table view. What did you call that again?
Yeah, this one was called the Create New Place View Controller. You get it, John?
Oh, yeah, sorry. All good.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's dive into some code. We're going to click at the very top where it says App Delegate, and we're going to create a new file up top. So I'm just going to create new file. This time we're going to go a little different. We're going to go for a Swift file, and I want to create a representation for a location with a name. So let's hit next. So that should be iOS Swift file. When this pops up, we're going to call this place.swift. So .swift should already be filled in for us. We shouldn't have to write that. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And that will give us a new code file that is empty except for one line of code plus some comments. So these are some comments. This is an import statement that allows us to write code using some of the classes that Apple provides. And we're going to make a structure. So I want you to follow along. Let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So Command plus and minus will resize the font for Xcode, which is really nice. So you can make it bigger, or you can change the font size in the preferences that we modified earlier. We're going to call this place, and I want you to try to type this as much as possible. You're most likely going to have some weird errors that appear. Sometimes the errors that we see, like the one I just saw, it doesn't really mean there's an error. It's kind of like a temporary thing. And so if that's the case, you sometimes just have to let it go and keep typing. If you're a slow typer, sometimes the errors might be confusing at first. So just keep that in mind. If you do have an error and you can't figure it out, just say something in the chat and the PMs can try and help with that. But I will share this code at the very end so that if we're really stuck, you'll have at least a place that you can sort of browse through and start to see how this code works. So a place, we want to store a name. I want to store a location, and that's going to be a latitude and a longitude. And so right here, this is a comment. So a lot of times when I'm thinking about code, I'll write a comment. Okay, what do I want to do here? And I'll think about it in English or whatever your native language is that you want to think in. And then I will go ahead and implement it. So for this, I'm going to set up 2 properties. I'm going to set up a string property for the name, and I'm going to set up a tuple that's going to store 2 different numbers that are going to represent the latitude and the longitude. So the way I'm going to write that is let name string, and then I'm going to say let location, and this is going to be a tuple. So I'm going to give it 2 names, latitude, which is going to be of type double, and longitude. So these are basically 2 variables. One variable has 2 components. It's got a latitude and a longitude. All right, so next I want to create an initializer. An initializer allows me to set these values up with some default values. So I'm going to type init, and it's going to give me this autocomplete suggestion where it says Swift initializer declaration. If I press enter with this little pop-up, it will insert code for me. So doing that, it gives me some starting point. If I don't want any parameters, which I do want some parameters, I can start typing whatever I want. Right now, what you'll see is these little bubbles get selected. I can tab through them. I can hold Shift Tab to go backwards. I can type Tab to go forwards. So for the parameters, what I want to do is I want to get all of the information that I need. So I'm going to start typing name, and then I'm going to type string for the type, and then I'm going to continue typing the rest of the information that I need. And I will try my best to spell this correctly, but sometimes I make mistakes as I'm typing live code. Okay, so with that, that's going to give me an initializer, and I just want you to try and match this code as much as you can as possible. Spelling and case is really important, especially when we're doing types. String must be a capital S, double must be a capital D. Next, it's giving me an error. It's telling me that I haven't set all the properties. That means I have to set these two values. So let's go ahead and set those. And we do self dot, and then whatever the property is, and we can set it to these values. And now what I want you to do is I want you to build it. Once you've got this working, I want you to build it. And I'm using a keyboard shortcut. That's Command B. So Command B will build, and I'll show you where that is in the menu. So if we go to Product, there should be a Build menu option under the Product menu. And you can see that's Command B. So I would say subconsciously, whenever I'm writing code, I'm always building just to make sure that the code is fresh and that it's actually being evaluated. And this lets me know if there's a problem. So if I misspelled something like struct and I were to build, what I would see is that I'm getting some kind of weird error message. And sometimes the error messages don't make sense. So like this one, because I misspelled struct with 2 R's, it's not showing me a helpful error message, but it at least gives me a clue that something's wrong here. So I fixed that by getting rid of the extra R. Another thing we have is syntax highlighting. This helps you know that you're using the keywords properly. So you'll see certain words are highlighted. Okay, so that is our place. And now we're going to create another code file that's going to be our place controller.
Really quick, to get the error stuff, you go into product and you select what?
Product and then build. Alternatively, you can just hit that play button and it will try and run the application.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Error, it will tell us if there's a problem. Okay. Just to help out, since this is our first day, I'm going to share some of this code in Slack so that you can see this file, because I'm going to create a new file now. All right, so I want you to right click on where place is, and we'll do a new file. And this is going to be another Swift file, and we'll hit next. And we're going to call this our place controller. What we're going to create here is what we call a model controller. This allows us to control multiple places. And so this is going to allow us to sort of separate our logic in our application. So I'm going to create this file. And this is going to be a class. So we are going to say class place controller. When we're writing this, you're going to see these curly braces. These are really important. And if I mouse over them, or not mouse over them, if I use the arrow keys to go back and forth, you can see that they are always matching. There's lots of symbols in code that must match, otherwise your code won't work. So we are going to create a function, and we're going to create a variable to store the places. So I'm going to call it var places. And this is going to be an array of places that is going to be empty by default. So this is syntax for an array. An array just means that we can have multiple places. So in our table view, we want to be able to have Rochester, New York City, and so on. And so this will allow us to store that information. So this is what you need to write for that. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense or if this is confusing. I just want you to write what I'm writing. And then I'm going to create a function called createPlace. So function is created using the func keyword. And just type along with me. So places is an array, and arrays can hold multiple elements. So anytime we want to add a new place, when I'm on the new places screen and I hit save place, I want to add it to the list. And so we'll use the append function here, or method, to add a new place. So this is essentially keeping track of all of the new places that we add so that we can display them on our user interface. So make sure that you type this out, and I'll give you a second to catch up.
So I got a question real quick. For classes, when we like create like variables or constants or whatever, like don't we have to initialize it as well?
Yeah, and we're doing that here. That on line 13 on my screen, I'm initializing an array of places, and so that's creating that for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's just a shorthand notation. Another option I could have written, instead of just I could have written place like this. That would also call the initializer. They're just different ways to do the same thing.
Okay.
Yep, good question. Okay. All right, so now going along the lines of the initialization that you were talking about, Hayden, the next step that we want to go to is we have to start telling these code, the interface code files about these code files. So what I want to do is I want to jump into our tab bar view controller. And in this code file, we're going to clean it up a little bit. So we don't need any of this commented code. So we can just select this at the very bottom and just press delete. And you just want yours to look like mine. So just get rid of any of those extra comments. There was the multi-line comments and then the single line comment. In here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a model that I can share between the different screens. And so this is going to be the data that we store, and whenever we add something to it, we will update the user interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let place controller equal place controller, and that's going to do the initialization like I did in the other code file. Now, my next challenge is I want to share this information with my two screens. So right now, essentially, I'm creating the places controller within the tab bar, and that manages the buttons at the bottom. But I want to be able to pass that to this screen, and I also want to pass that information to this screen. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a protocol, and we're going to add a new code file at the very top. And this will allow me to pass the information along to the other screens. So we're going to call this places presenter.swift. This is a new Swift code file. And I'm going to go ahead and create it. And then in here, what we'll do is we'll set up a protocol. So this will be called places presenter. And it will be of any object, or we could do, yeah, that should work. Another variant for this is also to make it a class, but I would say any object is recommended. So we'll just go with that for now. And this is going to allow me to basically set up a way to communicate in a sort of an abstract sense. So a protocol basically defines how we can interact with something. And so if you look at, let's say, a gas pump has a slot for your credit card. And so the first thing that you do before you can pump gas at the gas station is you have to insert your credit card. So we could have a function in our code that says accept credit card or something like that. Well, in this case, what we want to define is a property that's going to be our place controller. And this is going to be how we can pass information to other screens. So we're just going to write it like this. This is going to say anyone who is basically a places presenter, we know that they have a place controller. And so this is a way of formalizing the way we interact with a digital entity. And it's the same with a gas station. Every gas station you go to in America has a credit card slot for you to stick your credit card in. And you know how to interact with that because they all sort of behave the same. And we want that same type of behavior with our code. And so we can use a protocol to force our different code files to respond in a certain way. I will share this as well. And actually, I'll just probably drop this over there. So you can click on that to expand if you need to catch up. So with the places presenter, we can now go to our view controllers and we can modify them to conform to this. And so the first screen that I want to pass this information to is going to be our create new place view controller. So if you select create new place view controller, I want you at the very top on line 11, you're going to put a comma after UI view controller, which is the subclass that we're conforming to. And then I want you to type places presenter. When we type this, what we're saying is that this code file is also going to be conforming to this places presenter, which essentially is like we're signing a contract that says, I will provide a place controller. And you'll see that there's an error message. It's telling us it does not conform to the protocol. Do we want to add the protocol stubs? I can just hit that fix, and it will fix the problem for us. So we'll insert that variable for us. That's all we need, and then we're good to go. Okay, I need to pass this information to my other screen. So that passes the information to this screen. I need to pass the information to this screen as well. So we're going to do the same step. We're going to go to these different code files and we're going to modify them. So let me just share what we're doing here. So that's what you should have. We're going to jump back to the project navigator and I'm going to go to the visited places view controller. In the visited places view controller on line 11, I'm going to do a comma and then I'm going to type the presenter, the places presenter. I can press enter or tab to autocomplete that. Again, I'll have the same error message and I'll just click the button to fix it. So that will set this up. And that's all we need to do for this step. So we've got two view controllers inside of our tab view. We've got the add place and the places. They both now have this additional property because we've conformed to this protocol that allows us to say, okay, that has a place controller. And so now I want to go back to our places tab bar view controller. I know there's a lot of files here. And in here, we want to pass this information to the two view controllers that we are holding on to. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send that information over. And when we look at the documentation, so this is where, and I think we're gonna get this working, and then I think we're gonna take a break for lunch because this is going a lot longer than I expected, and then we'll regroup and finish this off. So let's talk about this real quick, and then we'll break for lunch. We've got this UI tab bar controller. This is a code file that Apple has provided for us. If we option click on this, it will give us a lot of information, or if we command click, we'll get a little menu that appears. If you click on quick help, which is the option button, which is this little icon, they actually don't print that on the keyboard anymore, so that's actually kind of weird that they're showing it here, but that's what the option key looks like. And this will show us quick help. Within Xcode, you can see all of this information. There's a lot of text to read here. I would recommend reading this later, but I will show you where we're going. If we scroll to the very bottom of this quick help, you can say open in developer documentation. In developer documentation, you should see this window. I talked about managing windows before, but there's this window option in the top that lets you switch between all the different windows that are open. So we've got a few different things open on my screen. Or you can use the commands tilde to cycle through, kind of how Alt-Tab works. So if you ever used Commands Tab on your Mac, that allows you to cycle through things. Command tilde allows us to cycle through windows within the same application. So if you have the documentation open from that quick help, we can read more about how the tab bar controller works, and you can sort of see how it's set up. What we care about are some attributes that it has, and there's some children view controllers that it's managing. And we're going to cycle through those and set up our places view controller. So what I want you to do is in the places tab bar view controller, I'm going to just write a comment here. So this is what we want to do. So our tab bar controller is going to manage two screens. It manages this left screen and it manages this right screen. We need to share the information. So we're going to use a for loop to iterate through all of our child view controllers, and we're going to pass the information that we have. So I'm going to say for child view controller in children. Children is a property of the current view controller. And in here, I am going to want to set each of those, which we just set up this protocol for. So if I say child view controller, I should be able to get access to and what I want to get access to is the places presenter. And so I will say, actually, before I even do that, I need to convert it. And so to convert it, I'll do an if let statement. So if let, in this case, child view controller equal to child view controller as question mark. So I'm going to try and turn it into something else. And I'm going to say, if this is a places presenter, then I know that I can set the value. And so now I can say child view controller. And you'll notice that when I did the autocomplete, it's giving me the type information. So it's now saying this is a places presenter. So I'll press enter. And then I know that I have a place controller. So I can press enter and I can set this to the one that we have up top. So then I will say is equal to place controller. And what this will do is it will cycle through all of the screens in our application, and it will share the same place controller that's going to manage the list of locations that we're adding. All right, so that's I think where I want to leave off for right now. I'm gonna resume this after lunch. So we're gonna circle back around 4 p.m. and we'll get started. But before I go, are there any other questions that I need to address?
4 p.m. is 1 Pacific, is that right?
Oh, sorry. 1, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question that isn't exactly pertinent, but hopefully, is this method properly conforming to MVC, or is this just kind of like acceptable for now?
All we're doing right now is hooking up. So the separation that we're trying to do here is separate our model data from our user interface. And so by having a separate class called place controller, we're separating our model out. So place controller is responsible for providing any functionality for managing our places. And in this case, it's creating a place. There's more I can do to encapsulate the behavior and the state. I'm trying to keep this a little bit simpler for today, but this is sort of a starting point. So we're trying to follow MVC in what we're doing. That's why we set up separate controllers for everything. And what we're doing right now is just passing some information in between our screens. So we have to somehow have some initial state. And so by creating this in the tab bar view controller, this is our initial place controller that gets created. And then we're sharing this with every screen in our application. So then every screen can work with the data that it needs, because in order for our map view to know, our map view needs to know which location was, which location we want to display, and our table view needs to know what the total number of locations are so that we can get and add new locations and display them. But this really just needs to display, and we're going to support selection. And then add places, this needs to be able to add a new place to our place controller. So everyone still needs to have access to the underlying data, and so we're sharing it using the place controller. And so this is just passing that information along, if that makes sense.
So without this functionality, we would have to create lots of variables and physically just sending this information back and forth.
Yeah, and there's other ways to do this. This is, I mean, when we write code, there's lots of different ways to do things. I'm trying to show you sort of a straightforward approach that's going to link these different things together. The thing that we do want to avoid is we don't want global state. In global state, if I were to create this outside of the class, that is not following MVC, because now we have global state, and global state's bad because we don't know who's modifying the data. So I will create things with inside of classes, and we'll learn more about this as we're working with code.
So then clarifying my question then is, with the places tab bar view controller delegating the place controller to the children, that is proper MVC is what my question was.
Yeah, I would say so. We're just sharing model data. So the separation of MVC is really trying to pull out a lot of logic from any of the view specific things, and then only pull out information as we need it. Cool. Thank you. Good question. All right. Can I get a show of hands of, let me just check. Can you raise your hand if you have things working?
Paul, I'm trying to go back through my code. I misspelled controller somewhere, and it's prompting errors on all the other screens. I think I fixed it, but I don't know how to refresh it. So just trying to figure that out right quick.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to share what I have as a starting point for when we resume. I use Git to create a version that's a starting point for us, but I will share this, and then I will get back to you, Brian. 1 second. Otherwise, you guys are free to go have some lunch. Step away from the computer. We've covered a lot of stuff today, and I want you guys to have a little bit of downtime because there's a little bit more to do to finish this up.
We're coming back in 52 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
1 p.m. Pacific.
When we come back, can you remind us how to turn off the simulated keyboard so that we can use the keyboard?
Yep. All right, so you guys can you can stop your video. You can go grab lunch. I don't know if I will. I'm not sure how I'm going to merge these two videos. I might just do 2 separate videos. So I might just stop this, and then we'll start up again. So Brian, what happened with your renaming? Your mic's muted again.
Somewhere I misspelled controller, and I went back and I thought I corrected it, but it didn't update on my other tabs.
Okay, you want to share your screen so I can see what we're looking at?
I don't know how to do. Well, I got you streaming on my iPad Pro.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if this will work, but let me see. Let me see if I can flip the screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me raise this up a little bit. All right, so if you can see here.
Yep.
So it's giving me that error. And
where's the place file?
It's in my place file?
Yeah, something doesn't look right with the place. It's underlining everywhere you've got place. So can you show me place?
Okay.
.swift.
All right. So here's place.swift.
Okay, so you've got a lowercase p for place. Make that uppercase p.
Should be uppercase. Okay.
And then hit the command B to rebuild, and let's see if that fixes the problem.
Okay. Capital P and command B.
Yep, that should build.
Okay. That did it.
Awesome.
I got one error. Visited places. So I need to go to presenter. All right, visited places. And where I presented class. You got a under the V.
So it's highlighting that. What's the error?
It says type visited places does not conform to protocol.
Oh yeah. So for this one, that's where we use the fix it. So if you click on the little dot, you
And
see the fix it as an option,
okay, that
and
did.
it should say add the stubs.
And my very last thing with the P list, I was gonna bring it up at the end. It should be. I'm not getting an error for it, but you added it to a file. I put it under resources. I have resources, then assets, then info P list. So that's correct.
Yeah.
I thought you did something extra with it.
Yeah, I did. So let me show you. Well, actually, can you show me your screen again? So you should go into, if you select the project settings, at the very top, if you click on places, that blue icon at the very top,
Places,
on the
blue
left
icon.
in the navigator.
Right there. All right.
Do you see in the very center of the screen at the top where it says identity? Yours. Oh, okay. So you didn't actually move the info plist into that folder, but if you want to try and see what this looks like, if you drag info.plist, you select that file and drag it upwards into the resources folder.
Oh no, it's in the resources folder.
No, it's not. It looks like it is, but it's not.
Okay,
So if you select it and drag up, no, not that high, just into the resources folder, right there. That's going to put it inside the folder.
Got you.
So it's indented slightly. It almost looked like it was in, but it wasn't.
Okay.
And so now if you click on the project at the very top, you're going to see that little new button. If you click on that button to choose the info plist file, now you have to select the file because it's moved into a new folder. And so for whatever reason, Xcode doesn't figure this out. And so we have to tell it the new location. And then you just hit choose. So that should fix it, but it doesn't update for some reason. This is probably so my trick for this is to click on any other file and then come back and then go back to it. Click on places at the very top. And now you should see that you've got your bundle identifier and that button is no longer there.
Places. Got you.
And so now what I want you to do, one last step, just try and run it and see if it works.
All right. All right, look like it's launching. Yep, attaching places to iPhone XR.
Awesome work, Brian.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right.
Anyone else stuck?
Hey, Paul. It's Danella. I have a quick question. So under Places tab bar view controller, I'm just having this error message where it says value of type UI view controller has no member place controller. It's
all right. Say that one more time.
just this error message under the if let child view controller. It states value of type UI view controller has no member place controller.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
There's that little share green icon.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Okay, so hold on. Sorry, I was trying to get my screen to work. Okay.
Missing the protocol on top.
So you didn't spell view controller the same. So you have a lowercase v for that first child view controller on line 20.
Oh, okay.
So I want you to make that a capital V, and that basically it kind of cloaks the existing one, and it should now work.
Got it. Yeah, it's perfect.
So now run it and see if it runs the app. We working?
Seems to be going.
Does
Oh.
anyone else have any other issues? Oh,
This is.
just hit OK. Try it one more time. Hit stop. You might have pressed it twice. I wasn't watching. What kind of Mac are you on?
MacBook Air.
Okay. Does that cancel button work, or is it non-responsive?
Okay.
Hit that stop button. Try hit cancel one more time. Hit the stop button first. Is that not working?
No.
It's stuck trying to connect to the simulator right now. So probably the best bet is go to the simulator and try to quit the simulator. So you might have to use 4 fingers to scroll left on your trackpad. Are you in full screen mode, or are you only sharing one screen with me?
Oh, I think I'm just sharing one screen.
Okay, I can't see your menu bar.
Let me. Let me go back. Okay, can you see my full screen?
Yes, much better. So, where's your simulator? Is it open, or did you quit it?
I quit it, so.
Okay, good. So now try and hit play. And if that doesn't work, sometimes you have to quit Xcode too, and just try it again when it gets stuck like that. John, are you still having an issue?
Yeah, I've got multiple errors. I'm not sure what they're due to. I mean, I'm trying to debug it now, but prototype table cells must have reuse identifiers and places table.storyboard.
Yep.
I don't even have I have a whole table view controller that doesn't really have anything in it.
It should have one blank cell that we set up that you might have missed because you were having some issues, I think.
Oh, so when I go to places table.storyboard, which is the prototype cells storyboard, there's really nothing in it. I don't know what I missed, but
yeah, 1 second, we'll get right to it. It looks like we're good here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome. Okay, John, can you share your screen, or?
I think so. I can press the share button. What do Xcode, right?
If you could share your whole screen, that would be useful, because sometimes I can't see the simulator if you just share Xcode.
How do you do share whole screen?
If you click that green share icon.
Yep.
And then it should be desktop 1 or 2, depending on if you have 1 or 2 screens.
Share computer sound. It says Xcode, simulator, Safari. I don't see anything that says.
Nothing that says desktop. It should be the top left corner, maybe.
Oh yeah, desktop 1. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I have the places table view.storyboard with nothing in it.
Okay.
Sure,
so there's an empty cell. It's that one white row. If you click on it.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, just a single click. It should be fine. And then you click too many times.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of problems with I guess there's a deep press, and then there's a light press.
Are you using the trackpad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a mouse for my Mac, so I have to mentally think, oh, he said right click, so I use 2 fingers.
Okay, yeah. So just single click.
Okay.
Not a deep click. And then I want you to click on the inspector panel, which is that top right icon. Yep. And then go to the attributes inspector, which is the little slider icon. And then where it says identifier, it says reuse identifier.
Yep.
You need to type in capital case, it's going to be places or place cell. So capital P and then capital C, place cell, CELL.
Gotcha.
And that's sort of pretty standard. We do capital case for identifiers, and we also try to do that for all of our class names.
Okay, and that has to be somewhere in my code too, right? Place cell.
Well, yeah, we'll set that up when we come back.
Oh, okay.
So now if you try and run it, that error should now be gone, and we might have another error to solve.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got a few errors. Build failed. All right.
Did you set up the preferences to jump to the error or not?
I did, yeah.
It's weird that it didn't jump. Okay, let's look at this.
Oh, wait. Maybe I didn't. No, that part I didn't do.
Okay, if you do command comma, that should bring up preferences, or you can go to Xcode in the top left in the menu bar.
Xcode.
Click on preferences. And then under behaviors.
Yep.
I want you to go to where it says fails in the top left.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Nope, not under testing, but under build. Oh, that was actually a little confusing. So under that one, yep. And then I want you to navigate to the first issue. It's the bottom.
Yep. Okay.
What was the other one that I had? Well, let me just double check.
Yeah, I tried to do everything you did there, but I probably did miss that and something else. I don't know what.
Oh, and then I want you to show the issue navigator. So
behaviors.
There should be a show navigator in the center. Same area we were just in. No, you don't need to go on the left side. Just in the right side of the panel.
Oh, show navigator. Okay.
Click that checkbox, and I want you to show the issue navigator.
Issue navigator. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So that will show us a list of issues when there's a problem, and it should take us to the first issue.
Gotcha.
So now if you go back to the application and you just hit the play button, you can just tap it. It should try and run it. And then it hopefully will take us to the first issue.
So that's what I did.
And we've got a bunch of issues, so it's taking us to one of them. So, but the error is actually the real problem that we're having here. So let's click on that one at the very bottom of your list.
Swift compile error. Okay. Yeah, I didn't understand it. Latitude is of type latitude, but I don't.
Yeah, so you've got a typo there. It's latitude instead of latitude. So just put a T in place of that D.
Oh yeah, you said you did that, and then I did it. Okay, that's done.
Okay.
I hit play again.
Yep.
Okay, capabilities for places. Oh, wait, we have another red one. Command link storyboards failed with a non-zero exit code.
Yep. Hold on one sec. Okay, let's go to the places table view controller. So the places is a storyboard file, I think.
This is table view controller.
Just
storyboard
places,
or
let's try the places table. Go to the storyboard file. And can you click on the scene or click on the view controller, either one?
Yeah.
Let's go to the identity inspector, which is the driver's license icon. Places tab view. Okay, well, we don't have the initial view controller. So you don't have that arrow pointing to this one. So you're going to go to the attribute.
Oh, I do not. No, I didn't. I understand that the arrow is where you kind of come into the program, but you mentioned that this whole overall program has more than one of those, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a requirement for a storyboard file. Every storyboard file needs a starting point. So we just need to set that up, but click on the attributes and then hit the checkbox for is initial view controller.
Okay. So now I have the arrow.
Yep. So that should fix one of those issues. Try it again.
Build succeeded. All right. Let's see if it actually does something.
Okay.
Okay. I'm probably missing a
Can you click on the second item?
Latitude?
No, we can't click on it.
Yeah, actually, I'm missing one, but I probably have a constraint. It doesn't work or something.
I want you to press Command K. It's going to
Okay.
hide the keyboard on the simulator. And then click on the second tab bar item on the very bottom of the screen of your iPhone. I just want to see if the other screen's working.
On the second tab bar.
Yep, that one right there. Okay, so we're seeing the table view and we're seeing the map view. So what you didn't set up was those icons. Did you download you have Slack on your computer here?
Yeah. I was using Slack on my Windows computer, so I wasn't.
Yeah.
I still didn't even know what you were talking about. Like I know I'm downloading an image file of some sort, right?
Yep. So do you have Slack on
I
this?
have Slack on the Mac as well. I just try and.
Can you open it?
Okay. Yeah, half of my trouble is just trying to manage all the open windows.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a Mac user, so like I have to get all these triple finger commands and all that stuff.
Right.
So you're saying open what again? Oh yeah, open Slack and then try and download. I can just find out where my. Okay, so Slack. Oh geez.
Do you have the app installed on your Mac or not?
I do not have the app installed. I just have it open on the web page. I haven't had time.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so I go under iOS 6.
Yep. And then scroll up. There should be an images zip that I have. Too far. A little bit down, a little bit down. Places images.zip. Download that.
Okay, download.
Okay, and go to your downloads folder. Put it in that, I think.
Yeah, I know where the downloads folder is, but now I can't. I've got my there we go. Okay, the downloads folder.
So click.
Where do you keep your video? Like the thing that I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. Where do you keep that? Because it's just.
Oh yeah, I have to move that around constantly right now.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm not the only one.
That's why having a second monitor is helpful, but it still moves around a lot.
Can it be any monitor? Like I have a second monitor that's kind of a cruddy one, but it's from a micro. It's actually for a Chrome box, but it's the thing is I don't know what connector you would have to use to connect the second monitor to a Mac.
You might need a dongle depending on what kind of Mac you have.
Okay. Well, anyway.
So if you open up your downloads folder and you say, just open in Finder, that top icon, that will open a Finder window for us. And then I want you to double click on Places Images to open that folder.
Yep. Double click.
Yeah, if you can. Okay.
And then shift copy all those, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then we need to get the right spot in Xcode first, though. So click on Xcode again in your dock.
Xcode in my dock. What do you mean?
First, actually, let's do two things. I want you to move the Finder window to the left side.
Finder window.
Just drag it left. All right there. Yep. And then I want you to click on Xcode again.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to go to the asset catalog. That's at assets.xc assets file. It's that sort of blue icon folder.
Yep.
Okay. With this open, that white panel is where we're going to drag things to. So you're going to select all four of those images in Finder.
Okay.
Like you had previously done.
Let me shorten that a little bit so I can see it.
And then you can use the arrows and then drag that over. Oh, try it again.
Oh, why? Okay, now I guess I have to light press. Oh my God, the light press is so irritating. All right. And then just stick that into the app icon for asset stock.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Towards them. So now you have those images, and we'll reference them using the names that you see right there on that left panel. So it says globe and plus.
Yeah.
So now in the
tab controller.
Yeah, but that's in our main.storyboard.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you go into that now it's doing a little bit of funky stuff here. So click where you see that little square box on the bottom.
Square box on the bottom. This thing?
Interesting. No, I'm looking at the view controller itself.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. So you meant main storyboard.
Hit the stop button. I think you started debugging it.
Yeah, okay. Hold on.
With the visual debugger. That's okay. So there's that little box where it says item.
Yeah. Look.
Okay, so that has selected that bottom. You can see that bottom rectangle.
Yeah.
So that allows us to edit the attributes on the right side of the screen. So in your attributes inspector, you should see a bar item in the very center, centered vertically. Oh, no, you were just there. See where it says item under title?
Yep.
Okay, change that one to, I think we called it add place.
Oh, man. You want me to? Well, oh, it's not globe or plus I'm not adding?
Not
add
yet.
place?
Let me just make sure I'm telling you the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was add place. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I called it add place in mine.
Oh, damn.
So just type add place with capital case with a space. This is going to be human readable presented to the user, so you want a space there. So that's the title. And then you'll see that that updates in the interface. And then for the image, that dropdown should have a plus. So underneath where you just type the title, there's an image field.
Yeah.
You can type plus, or you can click the drop down and click on plus. So now you see that that changes the file. Now we're going to scroll down using the trackpad, and then you're going to edit that bottom one.
Same thing. I go to item.
Yeah, and we'll call that one places. It's just going to be a list of places. And then the image is going to be the globe.
Got it.
Okay, now we still have a problem because I guess what I recommended was not actually good. The add constraints, if we go up to the other view controller, we've got some issues.
Yeah,
with this one.
Definitely have issues there.
So what I want you to do is I want you to highlight, you can box select all of those elements in that view controller.
Okay. Whoops. God,
yeah, just like that.
All of them, or just the
all
just
of them?
text?
Yeah, all of them. And let's just try. We can't see the button right now, so we're gonna have to hide some panels. So when you're on a small screen, it can be a little bit challenging to see everything. So what I want you to do is hide the right panel. And okay, so now we can see those buttons. Those buttons in the bottom right corner that just appeared, they don't always appear when you've got a smaller screen for the user interface. Do you see those buttons? Are you familiar with Star Wars?
Oh, you mean, yeah, it's the TIE fighters, yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to click on the triangle TIE fighter button. Whoop.
Hold on.
Okay, that works too.
Hold on.
Make that storyboard.
Storyboard.
And
yeah.
then,
so I want to. Okay, so I'm going to go to TIE Fighter.
Yeah, but we got to reselect them because you lost focus.
I think they're still selected, but I'll okay.
Yeah, but Xcode's a little bit weird sometimes. Oh, so don't hold Shift when you click. Just click and drag. Yep.
Okay, so so by doing that, I am basically constraining all of them at once.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. And then we want to
add missing constraints.
Right now, I want to clear the constraints on them. So click on Clear Constraints, and then we'll try Add Missing Constraints again. And if this doesn't work, then we might need to do it a different way.
Looks better. There's no red.
Yeah. Okay, try and run it and see what happens. We're going to talk more about auto layout on Thursday, so that's going to, I think, help.
I felt like I got pretty decent at understanding constraints in the pre-course, but
okay.
you're just moving so fast today that I can't really use my brain very much. So.
Right. There's a lot today.
Yeah. Well, it's not so bad. The coursework is fine. It's just having trouble organizing your workspace so that you're efficient.
Right.
Material's fine. Okay. It seems to be okay. I'm seeing all the buttons now. That's good.
That's good. I think you're squared away. Click on places and let's just double check that one. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Cool.
All right. Well, we're not really at the point where we can do anything with it, right? So we're not.
It's not. There's no logic yet. It's all a user interface and just like the beginnings of code connections.
Okay. And the other guy mentioned MVC.
Model view controller.
Yeah, but what? I feel like we didn't really define what that was yet. I know you mentioned it twice, but
we'll get to more of that type of stuff. I wouldn't worry about that right now.
All right, no problem.
I want you to focus on just trying to drag out things and trying to type in code and trying to manage the windows. So
I want you out of a break. So am I at least caught up so that I can rejoin without being way behind?
You're squared away.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate it.
Awesome work, John.
Awesome work by you, really. I'm just trying to.
What's
All right,
up, Taylor?
Hey, Paul. So I accidentally deleted everything, and I asked my PM what I should do, and he said I should ask you if you could share.
Can you just download the last zip that I uploaded?
I did, and it was it's like way before we did all the new controllers and.
I thought I just zipped up what.
Oh, maybe you did, and I missed it. But the one I did was from a while back.
Go back to Slack.
Okay.
Actually, whose screen am I looking at? John, are you still sharing?
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of that.
Taylor, do you know how to share your screen?
Yeah. Me.
I can't get the damn. Okay.
Not share screen while the oh, wait.
How do I
stop sharing? Am I good with that, or are you guys okay, or do I need to?
No, it says I can't share while one of you guys are sharing.
Let me just try. I'll take control and then stop sharing. Okay, try it now, Taylor.
Okay.
So places 3, and if you scroll down, it should be the. So if you download that,
and then open it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be the easiest place to follow along. It should be in your downloads folder.
Okay.
I don't know where your sidebar is.
Sidebar.
Oh, okay. You're in the downloads folder. I got it.
I mean, it's somewhere in here.
Okay. What I want you to do is in that search you were just doing, it was searching your entire Mac. Just type places with a capital P. And then click on downloads in the search, and it's this little, yep. Oh, that's really not helpful. Okay, scratch that. That's useless. What I want you to do is switch over to the detail view. And then hit the X mark on what you typed in or just backspace.
Right.
And then I want you to sort by name or by date modified. If you just click on date modified, it should sort. And then scroll to the very top.
Sweet.
There we go. And if you double click that, it should unzip. And then you can, that's interesting. Why did it call it that? Okay. You can drag that to your desktop.
You already had 2 here. Let's see. Open that up, right?
Yeah, try it. It doesn't look like it copied correctly. That might not have worked. So close this one. And go back to your downloads folder. Try and unzip places 3 again. Double click it. Just open that up and see if I zip the right thing. And just double click on the Xcode project. Okay, so now you should see those folders. If you expand them, you should see the other files, see if it runs. So just hit the play button if it lets you. And this is a reason why version control is really nice. So we're going to be learning about that tomorrow, which will help with these types of issues.
Isn't that like Git or GitHub?
Yeah, we'll be doing Git.
Okay. Sweet. Should have been saving it as we went along.
It's tough.
Yeah, I was worried. I was tripping there.
Is it still loading? What's it doing? It's still launching?
Yeah.
What kind of Mac are you on?
MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Exit out and try again.
Go back to Xcode. Yeah, maybe we want to close the simulator and then
Try it again.
it's going to complain. Then hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you.
Awesome. Take a break and get some food if you haven't.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
You're about to take a break, right?
Yeah. Jonathan, are you stuck on something?
All right, so I'm pretty much up to date with everything. Can I just share my screen for 2 seconds?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So, what the hell? Okay. I'm just gonna download the one that you uploaded and work from that. It was basically like I was getting the same yellow one error that you have currently.
Okay.
And when I go to run it and I click onto a different tab, I'm getting like a crash. It closes on the simulator.
Okay.
And it's saying like,
you want to share your screen? Is that working?
You know what it is? I'm trying to, I downloaded the new, don't even worry about it, dude. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it.
Okay.
I followed everything and understand everything. I'm just going to work off of the one you uploaded.
Got it.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Good work, Jonathan. All right, I will be back. I'm probably going to close this down and get this transcoding so I can upload this to YouTube, and then we'll start a new meeting for the next one.